5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Sync.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 245 of the TTV podcast. I'm Meso.
What do you want already?
I'm Marty.
Rick and Marty. I'm Meso.
Rick and Marty. I don't know, man. I don't really think this is wrong. I'm Barteran.
I'm LJ.
I'm Jonathan Zwan.
I'm Ven.
I'm Takuma Nuva.
And,
I'm Tenebrain Victus.
and hello, everybody. How you doing
Ven,
this week?
every single time I expect you to say Venethan Flan.
Listen,
Can I say
I'm committing to this full name thing, so maybe people will think your full name's Venethan.
I think about it still.
I am
just
Benedict.
Benedict Cumber.
Buckle man in our live studio audience says every TTV episode is someone's first TTV episode. We know. I feel that was pretty representative.
Yeah, that's how they all go.
And so far, I don't think we're going to retain the new ones for this episode.
Doubtful. Say
Listen.
fare thee well, newcomers.
If this is your first episode of TTV, go away.
Oh, gosh.
Whoa.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you don't belong
Yeah,
here.
listen,
You don't
you,
belong.
it's already been.
Wait, hey, hold
it's
the
already
phone.
been like.
Hold the phone.
It's already been 5 seconds, so we've got.
probably would have said,
That's
you
all
know
we
what,
got.
Someone
Yeah.
just left.
Build a big discussion, for sure.
I heard the audio cue of someone leaving the call.
Var why? How could you? Alright.
The views of Arteran do not represent the TTV as a
I
whole.
heard another one.
Another one.
I think it's actually people joining. The people that left are now joining back. Oh no!
Now they're just pranking us.
Now they're just screwing
It's
with
just a
us.
prank, bro.
Just a prank, bro. It's a prank can.
Don't you dare
Oh,
go there.
Until dawn. How I
Nobody
wish it would see
understands
the
that.
light of day. I'm sure somebody will. They played it until dawn.
Oh,
Did
man.
we really lose that footage? I can't
No,
believe
we
that.
did not. We did not
We
lose
didn't.
the footage.
It's just somewhere there.
You're the only one who can
haven't-
do anything with it, I think.
The problem is it's in a file type that nobody here can access.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would be able to access it if you guys can access it.
I don't know.
We should
because
sit down and
people
figure
here
that
I
out.
tried
Yeah.
downloading something.
For
I'll
those
look at it.
for those who don't know, we actually sat down and played and recorded the entirety of Until Dawn.
We
the video game.
recorded a Let's Play at Brick Fair, and we played the entire game.
Yeah, no,
Complete
we
full game.
finished the entire game.
Oh my god.
I tried to download
man.
a bit of it, and I was able to convert it via Handbrake to like an MP4 format, but it had none of our audio, and the video stuttered every couple seconds and flickered in and out.
Oh, that's
Dang.
my favorite.
I
love that.
I'm not sure if our audio
Well.
is separate from the video, or I don't know, maybe it is.
Yeah,
We'll
we'll have to
We'll
look
have to
into
look
it.
up. Yeah, we'll look and see how we can.
I don't even know
transfer those
like
files.
where. I don't even remember how we recorded our audio for that. I don't know where to even begin looking for that.
You know what? We should just have a whole editing team that's whole job is just to like re-record
Yeah, we
stuff
should
and
also
we
have
say,
a
okay,
studio, and
you
then we
guys
should have,
handle
like,
that.
Hundreds of dollars in budget. That'd be great. We should have all.
Oh, listen. I mean, I'm just saying.
Anyway,
In the dream world, yeah.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
so before the podcast started, we were talking very briefly about like the golden days of YouTube and like reminiscing about the time before time when you could actually have videos that didn't get copyright claimed left and right.
Mm-hmm.
Good times.
YouTube
Good
has fallen
times.
from grace massively.
Do you guys remember
when you
video
could actually
responses?
make money?
Yes, I do.
That was a thing.
100%. Yeah.
So that just occurred to me. Like that was our I was gonna say it was our first big boom, but it was actually our second big boom. Our first big boom was when we made the Biocraft trailer,
Yup.
and that was posted on BZ Power, and we got our first like string of like
I think that was our first
viewers
1,000
and
subs.
subscribers. Yeah, first 1,000
we
subs
had like
came from
several.
that.
Was it? I actually remember it being like around 500, and that us being like, "This is so big, I can't believe we have 500
It was-
subscribers."
It was some kind of small number like that, but it was just going from 0 to 500 is like pretty crazy, regardless
Yeah,
of
right.
like how big you are. So, but then I think the second big boom. I don't know if you guys remember this was
I remember this all right.
Bionicle Autopsy video that I made in response to
iBionicle.
iBionicle's video. I think it was about why Bionicle ended or something like that. Or
No, it was
Because
like
I-
it was
Bionicle
Bionicle
at the
brought
time
back.
he wanted to run another
Petition
Bring Back
Lego.
Bionicle
petition to
campaign.
bring Bionicle back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which had been
So
been
it was
done.
you killed Bionicle. No, I'm just kidding.
No, you killed
Should've-
Bionicle came later.
You made the video
no, no.
explaining like if Bionicle came back, here's how it would be like. Here's how it'd be different. Here's how it might be disappointing, and basically every
It's
single
fun
one of
going
them-
back and listening to that video and like looking at all the things that actually happened.
Yeah,
And it was
That was
prophetic.
pretty cool.
It
I
was
think
kind
the
of-
only difference was that it did use CCBS and people actually liked it. I think that was the only difference, but not everybody did.
Yeah.
That is true. They
was not
well,
unanimously loved.
they were able to use CCBS and do what we thought was impossible, and that was able to combine
Make it look good.
the-
form and function.
Wait,
they
the
were
form
able
and
to stick a
function aspect,
gearbox
right.
on it that
Yeah.
actually worked. It wasn't
like
floppy
it would
like
like
the Matt
the
Tech.
friction joints and everything. Those were completely innovative. Those were amazing. I never like we were discussing back then. Do you want posability or do you want like the functions? And we always thought it was an either or. And they came out and
they
made
were
it
able to do
work.
both. Yeah,
Yeah,
It
able
was
to
really
do
good.
both. Best of both worlds.
Yeah.
So
I don't. We talk a lot of crap about G2.
Yes.
Man, those sets were good
Yes.
though. Can we
Those
all
those
admit
sets
that?
were some of the best
sets
sets
were
we've ever
great.
gotten from
Even
Bionicle.
some of the like more mediocre sets are still stronger on average than stuff we got before because
I mean,
they still
okay,
do both.
here's
like,
the protectors are solid sets in and of themselves. These are the smallest sets that you were able to get for that year
Yup.
when they came out. Protectors are solid. They have every amount of articulation that the Toa do. They have their own like function. The little
Yeah.
rotating gun was super cool. You know.
Yeah, the protectors were all. I remember those being the first thing that I was just like really, really happy with when I
You
got all
were-
the sets.
You were
I
more
loved the
excited for the
protectors.
protectors than the Toa.
Yeah.
They
Well, it's
were
probably.
really well
I
done.
think it's because I had enough time to sort of get used to the Toa and how they looked.
Toa
You know,
looked
there was plenty of
nice to
pictures of
see.
them. We saw them at
we saw them
Toy
at
Fair.
Comic-Con, right? We didn't
Comic-Con,
really
yeah.
see the protectors, I don't think.
nope.
But
Yeah.
once I
Yeah,
actually
it was-
had the protectors in hand, they were all there. It was just like, man, these sets are
Protectors are
awesome.
phenomenal. The Toa were groundbreaking. Even the Skull villains, with the exception of Lost and Skull Scorpio, still had posability plus a gear function, which would have been unheard of years before. So
Yeah.
they all
That's
are
a debate I'd love to get into with you guys.
great. Go on.
Which is better, Skull Scorpion or Qatar?
Oh, easily Skull Scorpio.
Yeah.
Wait,
it's
which
Yeah,
one's better?
yeah,
Which one's
better.
worse?
Zero
Which
question.
one's better
which
and
one's
worse?
Better. Qatar is the worst
yeah.
one.
I'd say Qatar's better.
I could
slightly.
I could see how you would find Qatar better because Skull Scorpio can't really like do anything except stand there. But to be fair, that's all he ever does for me anyway because I don't play with my sets. So
Well,
it's
yeah,
like-
I'm in the same boat.
not
Qatar's
7
function's a
years
piece of
old anymore.
garbage.
You know, I'm like
Yeah.
I'm like that guy from Toy Story 2 who just wants to put the toys on display and everybody played with and loved.
yeah.
It's funny, yeah.
They
That
look like 'em,
over
too.
time, that's literally what I've become. Where like Var, you even literally have the glass cage that like Al has. And you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, at
Ow.
least they're all in the same glass cage together where they can still, socialize.
That's
Yeah, I
true.
didn't
Right,
separate
they can still
them.
talk, I guess.
They
Right.
had talked
Now we're
about
just
it.
gonna-
It's interesting,
plastic
actually. That
toys.
movie totally makes the adult like dude who's just a collector of toys seem like the biggest evil person ever. But like we
Right.
are Al from Toy Story.
We're totally Al
Well-
from Toy Story.
That's
That's exactly
hilarious.
who we are now.
Or-
It's
like,
it's interesting
skinnier
how your
and more
perspective
fat.
changes.
You either die an Andy or live long enough to become Al.
It's the true story of Toy Story is watching Andy's progression from sweet innocent kid to like awful adult that tortures his toys or something.
Nice.
Sid?
Dude, Prentice brought up a really like awesome point. He said, "I remember when I noticed the gear on Anua in 2015's back." Dude, remember the hype surrounding that? The first
Yep,
time we noticed
'cause
that?
Yeah,
Nobody
remember
could
that?
figure out how it was going to be done.
No,
No.
everyone was like, so is he gonna have a
yeah.
function? Is it? And
Yeah,
we
we
were like,
baked-
Is
about
it
that.
just
So, like,
there to
is-
pay homage?
I remember the first, like, just the sheer time, like, I think it was during recording when someone noticed that there was a gear there for the very first time. We had no clue what it was or anything. No one had noticed it at all. It was just, like, a shape. And then we saw it and was like, wait a minute. Is that a gear?
Yeah.
And then, like, the world was just, like,
It's not
turned
the
upside
kind of gear we're
down.
used to, but it's most definitely a gear. So like,
Man,
how does this-
and I remember like being at New York Comic Con and him showing off the function, and then him like the greatest thing is him letting go of the gear and the arm stuck up.
Yes.
and I was
It's like,
like,
yeah.
when we found out, oh my gosh,
what?
gear function and posability.
It was so cool.
Hype.
It was that was. I mean,
It was
honestly,
like the
as
two
a
great
Bionicle fan
warring
for so long,
factions
you know,
were brought together.
exactly.
And
it
now
was
we've
no
got
one,
neither,
no one thought it
because
could be
they're
done.
Cats
missing.
and dogs staying together. And
So good, dude. Oh, man. That whole trip was really hype. Oh, man.
That trip was one of the best trips we had.
Bionicle Revival was I'm glad I was there for that. You guys
Man,
should have.
2014 was easily like the most fun I think I've ever had with our channel. Just and
Yeah.
like being alive, it was just awesome.
Just like, I mean, like the amount of hype that we had talking about it every week, just
hype
being
train.
like, what's gonna happen?
Oh,
and the
gosh.
hype train, the Omega Tahu, you know, that whole meme coming up, and then like going to, and then of course building up to the moment where the guy's like, anything you build, you can take home.
Yep.
That like slow motion.
Bookleman says like
In the live studio audience, Bookleman pointed out Brick Fair as being another
Different kinds
example
of
of an awesome
fun.
time. The thing with
Different-
Brick Fair, is I had already had a Brick Fair experience during 2014 when we went to Comic-Con. So
Right.
for me, Brick Fair was less special because I had already met some of these guys in real life.
Right.
Brick
and we
Fair
had
was a
met other people in the
community
community and stuff.
and full TTV realization experience. And it had very little to
We
do
realized
with
we
Bionicle.
were there.
It was about us. It had very little to actually do with Bionicle. The
Well, no, I
year
wouldn't say that's
20
true. We got over the fact that Bionicle was over again.
Exactly. It had very little to
'Cause
do
we
with
did,
Bionicle.
we did.
I remember you, Messa. You
Yeah,
were
it was
so-
bittersweet.
So flippantly rejected, or dejected rather, after we finished Journey to 1.
Oh yeah, I was done.
Yeah.
Then
Brick Fair was the greatest way to recover for
that
sure.
night after
because-
Journey to
honestly
1,
was.
I was so angry. I had to like leave call and then type up a giant rant in a notepad document, which I later used as like a pseudo like point of reference note for like when I was bashing on it on the podcast. Like, okay, here's why it makes no sense. The ending's awful. Here's why.
Right. I mean, it was funny because we went there, like, everyone, some people had known that Bionicle was going to be canceled. Some people had, like, received that information, but others hadn't. And so we were
Yeah,
there
like
at Brick
us.
Fair. Yeah, exactly. Well, we were there at Brick Fair, and then we were talking about Bionicle, and it was funny because we had planned out this panel for a good while before we knew this.
Yeah,
We're
we had a
talking about
panel that we were going to talk
right.
about Bionicle.
And then so we were talking, but it's like, so what we're gonna do now? Bionicle's ended again, guys.
Gone
It was
right
like
before our panel.
2 years of glory, 2 years of like relevance, and then like
Yeah.
we're like, oh well.
Yeah, I remember absolutely hating, or like dreading the idea of having to move on to like system to get my Lego fixed too. I was not interested in system
I remember
at
that.
all.
Fully
Everyone
embraced.
Not
was
a
like-
single
I remember,
bit.
I remember listening to you guys with that. I'm like, that's not gonna last.
I've yet
Yeah,
to
and
do
we go
it,
to
though.
Brick Fair and immediately
Like,
come
that's
back, and I'm
not
like
gonna
all
last.
about system
I've yet
now.
to do it simply because system's expensive, but I am a fan of it now. I've embraced
Well, I mean,
the
like,
system overload.
honestly, if there was one thing that was really cool about Brick Fair is that it helped us invest in the future of this channel. Because I don't know how we would all feel if we didn't go to Brick Fair. What we weren't like super into system, and then now
Probably
we're
not
like,
that
well,
good.
riding out this Bionicle
Yeah.
train.
It's
Faux show.
It's crazy. This time last year, I was super into Bionicle, getting everything, looking forward to the summer wave, and now I have sig figs of everyone sitting on my desk.
Yeah, do you wanna get up on that or save it for Brickvid?
I'm gonna save it for
Everyone?
Brickfeed because they're
Alright.
not all done yet.
Gotcha.
So,
Sig
which
figs are
I
coming.
guess that's a great kind of hook. Go over to Brickfeed to check out all the sig figs I've made of everyone.
Exactly.
Except me. Or have
Check
you
out
found
these
something
sick-
that you
I-
think
I'm
is-
working
Also,
on
check
you.
out Brickfeed just because of the awesome new like editing that's going on with that video.
Okay, yeah,
Like,
we're doing some
that video's getting
experimental
crazy cool.
We were. I've been me and Waj have been working together trying to
It's
get a new
It's
format.
shaping up quite nicely.
See, Waj
Yeah.
very easily became my favorite of the mod squad, but he's just an amazing person.
He's a cool dude.
I don't like to pick favorites out of my children.
Wow.
But
so
I do.
let's,
I pick Wash.
Waj, if you're listening, you're the best.
rip the other mods. Sorry,
Slime's
guys.
cool too.
We're
Throw
gonna
him
be
under
meeting
the bus.
slime
In
this year.
small doses.
Not
Didn't
just-
make the cut.
Here's what's gonna happen, right? We're all like, okay, Wash is awesome. Oh, rip the other mods. I love Slime and I love John. And then there's gonna be like the one like mod that we forgot. And they're gonna,
Right.
He's
Oh,
gonna
you
be
know who
listening
it
to this, be
is.
like,
Hello, who?
It's Indigo Geek.
Yeah.
I like
Who?
Indigo Geek. He's great.
I like Indigo.
He's not.
Who?
He's a
I don't
geek
know
and
who
he's
you're
got
talking
Indigo.
about.
I
Yeah.
don't like any of the mods.
Well, I guess the mods hate you.
All right, let's. Can we insert crickets in that?
Waj, hey, can you do that?
Nice.
Sign up for the TDV message boards, guys.
Oh, that.
You can meet our mods there. It's board.tdvchannel.com. It's a great place where you can post your own mocks and stuff, and also you get to contribute to Brickonicle, our big
Thanks for taking my plug.
G3 push. Yeah, dude, I felt like that was a good time to do it.
Fair enough.
Good job.
You got to get that like nice natural transition
Gotta get
into
that
it. And
natural-
stuff.
Yeah, no, I feel
Flow,
like
yeah.
natural transitions are better. I always hate it when I have to like do everything at the end, but I try to do it in the middle, and it just doesn't really.
I don't know
work,
what you're talking
so.
about.
Yeah, well.
Sounds
Anyway,
like
the
you're trying
boards
to
are
make a
great.
sandwich.
Actually, speaking of the boards, last week we talked about some new developments with Brickonical. I don't know if we want to go ahead and move on to that. Or...
If we want to make efficient use of our time, let's. We're 15 minutes
let's
in.
do that.
Here's the deal. Last week we did a big podcast. We broke free from the shackles of the leg debate, and we moved on to greener pastures, and we brainstormed a heck of a lot of stuff. Mask of Time, Three Brothers, story outline, and the message board's response has been a little interesting. And we're going to spend a chunk of this episode kind of addressing community feedback.
Yeah,
So
those
I know you
legs
feel
came
very
back and kicked
strongly,
us in the
Var.
teeth.
Take us all. Take it away. Take it away.
Okay, I did pull some. I do want to address comments not only just in the message boards, but also in the channel as well. There's some comments left on the TTV video, so I went ahead and picked a few out that I think we could talk about.
Okay.
Essentially, because we haven't really directly responded to any comments yet. I feel like, at least not on air. So
We haven't. Well, no, there was that one that Kai responded to and like ranted on about, but outside of that, no.
yeah, I don't really have these in any particular order, so I guess I'll just kind of tackle them one by
Take it
one.
away.
Okay, let's see. We'll do this first comment here by Te Purple Beanie.
Oh yeah, to purple.
She's here in spirit.
Yeah.
If Artaka is this is sort of a pitch or suggestion. So he says, if Artaka is the name of the normal everyday island, why not feature Karzani as the backwards bizarro world version of the island? It would kind of fit considering how the latter was in the books in G1, Isis, Hot Fires, Cold, etc. So obviously he made this comment before he got to the Three Brothers part of the episode. However, I guess there is still some merit to a bizarro world version of the island. I'm not necessarily in favor of that idea, but it is kind of a unique idea.
Well, okay, here's the main thing when you ever do a shadow version of your world. It's always a little cheap because, like, what makes Madanui great in G1 is the fact that there's all this world building and all the characters in it and all that stuff. And then, like, in G2, they had the thing where it's like, oh, and there's the Shadow Realm. And you go to the Shadow Realm for, like, 5 minutes, and you're like, what is this? And you don't get the chance to explore the Shadow Realm. You don't get a chance to like do anything of that.
Or to really understand it.
Yeah, it's just like
Yeah.
the thing
It's
about
like, it was just kind of tossed in there.
It's like the upside
I
down.
don't mind a
and Stranger
realm of like I don't mind if the place where Kazani is kept is maybe a separate location that has
Yeah,
its
like a
own
realm of
thing with
darkness
it.
or something.
Right, a realm of darkness or something like that. But I don't know a bizarro version of the island. It's not like the
Yeah.
past, where you go to the dark
Right.
world and like you have all that stuff.
We don't really need like the upside down, but in Bionicle, really, it's
Right.
Yeah, it's a little more out there. There's a lot of out there ideas that we're going to be talking about today that are really really unique and cool, but a lot of them don't necessarily fit in the Bionicle that we were creating here. So that's going to be a common trend here. But yeah, I do kind of feel like this comment is got a cool suggestion, but I'm not sure if it really works here.
Yeah. It's something maybe to explore another time, but right now
Yeah.
it's not.
It might
gonna
come
be a
up though.
focal
Like, I
point.
mean, at the moment we haven't really gotten too far in the world building
Like,
yet.
I
We're
can
still
say this: if we ever do that, I know you probably already mentioned this. It probably won't be called Karzani.
Oh yeah, it definitely won't be because we have a character.
We
called
want.
Karzani.
I mean, they did this in G1. It's not unheard of. We don't want to do that. We want to avoid
No,
having
we're not
character
gonna.
names the same as
And
island
location names.
There,
Right.
there
Yeah.
were 3 Karzanis in the Generation 1 story, and they were all different
There were.
things.
Yeah.
yeah, let's try to do that.
Wait, what was the third one?
The
It was
plant.
the plant.
This is a plant. Yeah,
Plant. I forgot about the stupid plant.
Story-wise,
it was weird because it's like the
consumption.
Marbuzak, but it was called Karzani, and it was
Yeah.
The weirdest thing was, consumption-wise, Plant Karzani came first, then the person in the location.
That's bizarre.
No, totally. I mean, you're totally right. It's just like, why didn't they just make that the Marbuzak?
I don't
Because
know,
like
man.
that was
Makes
that
no
was supposed to
sense.
be a character,
It's so
kind
stupid.
of that had a name and everything, and
It
then it's
was
like,
really strange. We can get into the specifics, but it's worth our time to
Right,
talk
right.
about comments.
Yeah. What's the next comment?
Yeah.
right.
Next comment is from iBunny, and he posted, I think Makuta shouldn't resent his brother, but was overshadowed by him, so his motivation to resurrect him could be to gain his allegiance and a forever in your debt sort of thing. Akimu should be a jerk. sort of like Ego in Guardians of the Galaxy. I think the third brother
Spoilers!
should be.
He's a jerk.
I mean,
Okay.
he's kind of a jerk in the trailer.
I don't even know who Ego is.
I don't either.
Of course you don't, because you haven't seen the movie yet. 'Cause it's not out.
No one there has.
It's not out in the U.S. at least. It's out overseas.
Oh, so they've
I don't know.
this guy's
Next
already
week,
seen
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, this guy's
I-
already seen it. I'm assuming.
I guess. I don't know. I
Yeah.
think the third brother should be the only evil, and Makuta and Akimu/Motonui are needed together to overpower him. Okay.
I mean, that's kind of what it will eventually
Well, okay,
be
now
like.
maybe
there are a couple
eventually-
of things about that, yeah, that work, and other things that don't.
Let's address one big thing first. The big thing is that Karzani is not going to be talked about in any big
Yeah.
fashion on this podcast again for a good while. The reason why is that the only reason we even mentioned it to begin with is that this is our 4th year beyond option, where it's like we're going to build the story out past this point.
in the
We're going to
hypothetical
leave
world
hints.
where we're trying to
in a
get
hypothetical
this theme
world,
renewed,
right.
that's the hook to like, it's like a sequel
That's
hook.
Right, exactly. It's so that we don't have this whole thing where we have to come up with a new villain out of the blue. You know, like we can lead into this thing that we've built up since Generation 1. Or not Generation, Year 1.
Yeah.
The second thing is that Makuta resenting his brother, I don't think that was really... I mean, like, he does resent, not Motonui, Ikimu for the sentience thing, but I feel like it's less of a thing. He's mad that like he was overshadowed. That's
Yeah.
the G1 thing. I feel like that's been done
That's a
billion
G1 thing.
times.
Armakuta, I wouldn't describe his relationship with Akimu as resentful. I think
Yeah.
what we suggested, and I think what we're going for here, is that Makuta, Karzani, and Akimu all have a different vision for what they want the island creation to be like. I mean, Akimu, his ultimate like vision, I guess, is to give all the creations like sentience, life, and have the island sort of explore and grow on its own. Makuta is sort of like Lord Business in a sense, where he wants it to be preserved. He wants it to be controlled.
Wants to
He's got the
control
master's
it.
control.
He wants like an organized, orderly system,
A system,
that was
exactly.
able to work, and that sentience he feels is more of a curse than anything else.
Right, it's a curse on his creations. He
Right.
doesn't. It's ultimately not a good thing for them. I feel that's how he feels. So it's not so much a resentment as much as it is a disagreement. And with Akimu there, it's sort of taking away his control over the island and what he can do to save his creations and whatnot. Meanwhile, Karzani is sort of just like the oddball, right? He's more chaotic. He's more like let's just
Right.
do all kinds of things.
Let's
There is
just create this island and destroy it.
there's actually we're gonna get to another
Like when we always
comment
blow
that
up the Biocraft map with TNT when we were building it the first time.
Schmessa, we're not supposed to
So
tell
you're
the
Karzani,
fans
is
that
that what
that's
it
There
why
is
they didn't
a,
get it for so many years. No, I'm just
Oh, my bad.
There's another
me.
comment that we're going to get to in a little bit that actually gives a suggestion on Karzani that I think is pretty good. So that'll probably build into that a bit more.
Alright.
With that said, on your first point, John, I do want to. We're going to talk about this more too, but I really got to emphasize, Karzani is not a player in this story for the first 3 years. He's not going to be involved at all.
You
So-
gotta understand this.
People are calling him the ultimate antagonist, and that's a misnomer.
No,
he
no, no, no,
is
no, no,
an
no, no.
additional antagonist.
No.
He's an additional antagonist. Yeah. Makuta is our bad guy for the first 3 years. Makuta is our antagonist.
Is
so,
our ultimate antagonist, right?
yeah.
You
So
really,
like
you gotta understand this. This whole idea. It's like Lego Theme Simulator, and we haven't gotten past that stage in the game to where we get an extension in our theme to earn extra
Exactly.
points.
Exactly.
yeah.
Makuta is like the Overlord, and Karzani is like any of Ninjago's other villains, if that makes any sense. Like, the Overlord is the 3-year villain for Ninjago. Karzani's everybody else, who was not.
Yeah.
Part of the only reason we're even thinking of Karzani right now is because if you look at Ninjago and you look at other Lego lines that get extended past
They
the 3
don't
years,
future-proof.
exactly. Like it seems like the Overlord, they're building towards the Overlord, and then it's done, and they're like, "Oh, you get a 4th year," and they're like,
Oh,
"Oh,
no, let's bring
now we
the
gotta come
Overlord
up with
back,
something.
but he's a robot, or let's do ghosts.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, no,
So the
Right,
point
exactly.
of Karzani is to have those building blocks already established. So when it's time to introduce him, once the 3-year pitch is over with, it doesn't seem like it's coming out of nowhere, or that we're essentially rebooting the entire line again.
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
We are
So-
going to give hints to the fact that Karzani exists throughout the 3 years.
But he's
They will
not
be
going to be a
unresolved
part
if
of
it
the
gets
story.
canceled. Right, they will just be unresolved if they at the end of
Yeah.
3 years Lego's like that's it.
Yeah, so if
That's it.
Lego were to cancel at the 3-year mark, then Karzani's story beats aren't going to matter at all. They're just
Right.
So it's forgotten. All right, so moving on. This is a really long comment. I think this is going to take some getting through here because it's a pretty critical
let's
one.
go for it.
All right.
Oh,
This one is
boy.
from Rune Master. Because I'm quite a rant here.
I'll link the.
I'll try to get through this one
wall
quickly,
of
or try to
text.
emphasize it. Yeah. Why does the Mask of Time have to be the catalyst of the Toa's powers? Why does time have to be with the activation of powers? You could come up with literally any kind of plot device that could give the Toa their powers. Why does it have to be this
comment.
needlessly convoluted tie-in with the Mask of Time? Like I said in podcast 234, having the line start out with the island being frozen and stagnant is not a good way to introduce the setting. Which you guys have said yourself is an important aspect of Bionicle. Having flashbacks to explain the Toa's backstory does not work in this setting either, because in the flashbacks where the island is still not frozen in time, the Toa are still villagers. We're trying to sell them in their Toa forms. We only see them as Toa in the present, where the island frozen and where the island is frozen and stagnant. If you want to properly introduce the island and the Toa, do not do it when we are able to see both of them in their natural state side by side. That's essentially what I pointed out. It looks like he made another post at the bottom there, doing some Three Brother suggestions, but I think the first one is the one we really want to focus on.
We should
Okay.
get that one out of the way right away.
Yeah.
First one, that doesn't happen. The Mask of Time does not give anyone their powers. The Elemental God gives them
Yeah,
powers.
that's
Mask-
a bit of a misunderstanding of the
Right.
pitch, I think.
Right. The Mask of Time, what it does is it creates a scenario where the Elemental Gods needs to appoint Toa. This
Yeah.
is the big danger that happens. But at no point does the Mask of Time give anyone their powers. It's just a catalyst for the Elemental Gods to choose more people to become
So
Toa
the
again.
difference is, I believe when he heard our pitch, he had the misinterpretation that when the mask goes off, the explosion of time that it causes is what activates or triggers the Toa powers in the Toa and causes them to turn into Toa. Which, to be fair, I think that was sort of how he worded it before when we
Maybe.
initially came up with that pitch.
Maybe so. That's not the
But that's not exactly what happens. What happens is the mask goes off, the island freezes, and the elemental gods are alerted, essentially, to the sense of danger that
time
that the
for
island is now in
heroes.
danger. Yeah. So they now know that it's time to activate the Toa or create new Toa to help save the island from this impending doom. So that is what causes the Toa to be born, not the Mask of Time. The Mask of Time is just the trigger that causes the response of the Toa being made.
Right. And to be fair, we came off the Mask of Time thing before the Elemental Gods. There was an initial point where the Mask of like the Nuva symbols were the things that gave the Toa their power. Where do you remember this?
Vaguely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was our initial pitch. But still, it's always been like the Mask of Time is just the dire danger.
I do see a
that the
comment
Toa are
thread
in.
going around with this comment, as well as some other people who are like, "Why? I don't think you should like waste the Mask of Time like right out the gate on like the intro to the story. You should save it for like the end or something, because it's a
Well,
big
you're-
plot point." But I don't know.
Here's the thing: we don't want to tell a story about time travel. Like we don't want to make
time travel is garbage.
Yeah, we don't want to make time this huge thing to focus on. Right now, we're using time in a small capacity to sort of set up the Toa and like some more struggles with them. But like overall, time as a narrative focus is kind of a can of worms when you start
It never
making that a
ends
bigger
well.
thing than it is. Yeah.
I feel like there's one thing that we should say about time travel or the lack of thereof in this universe. Time should always move forward. It can move forward really slowly, it can move forward and almost come to a standstill, but it always moves forward. There's never a point in time where you go backwards, because the
Agreed.
moment you start going backwards, you get into the contradictions.
Right.
You can go forward in time, like a huge deal, but then you can't go backwards.
Yeah.
It works the same way it does in our universe, just at different speeds.
Exactly. So there's that. The second half of this guy's comment is regarding the frozen island and having the location be stagnant. I understand the concern with that one. I will say that I feel like we kind of remedied that concern a lot by
I think we did.
by splitting the arcs in half, where like the first
Right.
half of the year has it split in or frozen, and the second half it's not. I think that's a pretty fair compromise to making that a bit better, because I do understand like freezing the location is kind of a bad idea if you want to get to know the location in that first year, and I think that is important. However, I do think that it's also important to plan out our story so that we're not giving everything away in the first half of the year, and then the latter half there's no content at all.
Which is exactly what a lot of LEGO themes do, and we want to
Which
avoid.
is exactly what it does. In fact, that's how G2 happened. Like we got we got our only bit of story content very early on, and then it was just nothing for the entire year until at the very, very end when we got our first book. We don't want that. We want to pace ourselves. We want to pace
And
the
we
story.
can't- I feel like what we can do is that the first part of the story is building up the backstory to these Toa. It's actually
Exactly.
nice because all of the Toa, like all the LEGO seasons, have 13 episodes. For Ninjago, for Chima, for Nexo Knights, they have 13 episodes a season, which is great because we have 6 episodes at the beginning to set up each one of the regions and the Toa, do a little bit of backstory, setting up how they were as villagers, as well as cutting back to the Toa interacting in the first year. And then in the second half, we get these characters who we now are informed of their history and how everything worked up, interacting with Toa now, who are, instead of just being another villager or whatever position they were in, now they have this, untapped elemental power. They are blessed by the gods. They have all this new responsibilities, and so now we can kind of come back to that.
Exactly. It's all about pacing ourselves. It's all about focus. The first half is focusing on the Toa as characters, their relationship with each other, and their backstories and how that relates to how they interact with each other. The second half is more about the island and the actual threat at hand and solving that threat. So you're getting these two different stories, and they're being paced evenly so that you're getting story content as the year goes on, and there's never a lull period. Also, to address the comment about like how we should be selling them in their Toa forms, not in their past forms, I don't really see why we should only focus on them in their Toa forms. I mean, their past is just as relevant to their characters as their present. So I feel like if we're trying to sell these characters, then it's important to cover their past, especially since in this universe they're not losing their memory like they were in G1 and G2. You know, they're still the same people going forward.
Yeah, we need to sell the character, not a specific form, because the
Big
form
part
will
of the
change
story.
over time.
Big
Yeah,
part of the story could be about how they have to relate to new circumstances.
Yeah. Meso, I think your mic has changed.
I got it. Go on.
Okay.
Nice.
But yeah, so their past is very relevant, especially with some of the pitches that we have kind of brewing in the background for the Toa's backstory. For instance, some of these characters might have history with each other before they were Toa, or have some kind of certain opinions towards each other before they become Toa as well. Like Tahu and Kopaka, for instance, might have a relationship to some degree before they're Toa. So it's important to sort of set up that kind of stuff prior to them becoming the Toa as well.
Totally alright.
So that's why we want to focus on both. Next,
I do think that important aspect too, beyond just that, like the Toa might be related. They might have people in their lives that have a relation to other people. There are the people in charge of the villages that have. I mean, just in general, like, I mean, there is, if you guys remember Heroes, I don't know how many of you saw Heroes, there, in the first season, there's a revelation that 2 characters who you thought did not realize each other actually did, and there was, like, this whole thing of, like, everything's connected and that kind of deal. And that's what we're trying to build to here for this first season, is we're wanting the second half to be as relevant as the first half, and so stuff that's built up in the first half will pay off in the second half, and then later on in the line as well.
Exactly.
this next comment is from Channon Jackacool.
What a name.
I think I got that right.
That was a great name.
that a
Jack
real name?
Cool.
Is this the real life?
Maybe it's cold.
The name's Jack
I guess
Cool.
so, man. His comment reads, "Since you brought up Karzani as the Mad God, I just got an idea that the reason he's so chaotic is because his mask of his mask power. I think if he kept his mask the Olisi, which allows him to see alternate futures, he could be seen as spontaneously doing random actions while he's really doing them to change the future he saw. Or it could be that the mask shows him all realities simultaneously, so he's interacting with the scenarios that never was or haven't happened, making him behave erratically." I really like that idea.
I really like that.
I
a
really
lot.
like
That's a
that
cool
idea.
idea a lot.
How would that be shown in a story format without delving too much into time travel, reality bending?
No, it wouldn't be time travel. He would just like be shown as having crazy visions.
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah,
like be and
basically
like you
hallucinating.
could play it off as him being mad. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the thing is, you don't really need to explain that well for that to be conveyed. You just really, like, he's just kind of hallucinating, he's just kind of crazy and mad, but that is essentially the reason why. It's because his mask is is showing him these alternate futures that are making his behaviors change,
Okay.
because of it. So I really like that idea. I think that's a really, really cool suggestion.
I also like the idea that he is more in tune of chaos because he sees how everything ends up chaotic.
exactly.
You know, with the law of entropy, everything will eventually end up in a disorganized state, and he's getting all this feedback all the time about how everything is just kind of not going to work out. And it's just, you know.
Krazix in the live studio audience said he is blinded with knowledge, which is essentially what it is. And I think that's really cool. It's a cool idea because it's like you would think it's sort of the other end of the spectrum from Akimu, right? Where Akimu is granting his people sentience, life, knowledge, the ability to live. Karzani has this other end of the spectrum where he's got so much knowledge that it's affecting his character and judgments in a very negative way. He knows too much almost. He's like the reason why, or he's the perfect example of what Makuta is trying to avoid almost.
What if, okay, so now that I'm just kind of spitballing here after having this theory, you know how in G1 they had the visions, right? Lakama would have visions and he would have like this kind of like, you know, connection to what was supposed to happen in the future, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What if, like, throughout once Karzani is introduced, that's like, we're talking about him again. I don't want, sorry. Like, he would show, like, the first clip would show, like, this eventual future was going to happen, and people would think, oh, that's the vision of the future. And then the next time we saw it, it would be a different outcome, right? Like, you know, Saku's supposed to fight this guy, and instead he fights this other guy, and then everything turns chaotic because of that. And then, like, over time, we keep seeing all these multiple visions of what's going to happen at this final battle, and all the different things. And then throughout the season, we're also setting up the reasons why people would choose certain things over the other, and we know one of them is going to happen, the results of them, but not actually which one's going to fall through.
Right.
Butterfly effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think that's a really, really cool suggestion that I think I don't know, for me, that's kind of my headcanon going forward, I feel. It's really
Fine by
cool.
me.
I'm
problem.
down for that. That sounds
Zero
great.
problem.
I really like that
If
idea.
it's all our headcanon, it's canon.
Yeah.
This entire thing's our headcanon.
Woo,
so-
cannon!
Cannon.
But,
Fire the
Someone
cannon.
said cannon.
Yes.
Right, let's see. This comment is sort of similar to one we already addressed. Okay, here's an interesting suggestion from Marcus Trid. He said, or Marcus Strid, I think. A thing that you could do is that the power of Akimu, Makuta, and Karzani are partly dependent on how many believe in them. That could be a path to why Makuta grows from tiny to large, because when he first is revived, only the Roxy believe in him. Akimu will be big when and if he is revived, because the Matoran think of him as their creator, and Karzani would be the same as Makuta. Or he could be big because he has others that believe in him that is not Matoran.
Interesting idea.
So, you're right. So
Interesting idea and spelling of idea.
So rewind, like
Makuta is just like a
and
tiny
Akimo
dude.
were both
Then he
married
gets
at one
remarried,
point.
and then he grows bigger.
Yeah.
So
gets
what I'm
remarried
getting
to
out of
Doras.
this is essentially the plot of Peter Pan 2,
Nice.
No, it's essentially
where
the plot of
Tinkerbell
American
starts
Gods.
dying because somebody doesn't believe in fairies.
You're right.
No, I feel it's like if you've seen Neil Gaiman's American Gods, it's the same thing. Like gods are as powerful and exist as much as people believe in them. It's not. I'm not opposed to that being the reason why Makuta grows larger. It's definitely better than what I was thinking of beforehand. That could actually be an element of, if you're thinking of like Game of Thrones, for example, how like the Seven and everything were introduced into King's Landing and everything, and how that religion kind of took power. That could possibly be Makuta's intentions in terms of manipulating everyone through the Civil War and going out, more people believe in him and stuff.
Right. I'm just laughing at all the revived comments in the live studio audience now.
Revived.
So yeah, that's certainly an interesting suggestion. It's another one of those things where, like, at the moment, I'm not sure if it would really fit in, but like the more we build and write towards it, it could be something that could work out. So I can't really say
Put a rain check on that.
yeah, I can't really say absolutely no, but it's certainly a unique idea, I think. All right, so that is pretty much all the YouTube comments. There was one that was yelling about how we're not writing the story in a professional manner, and I can't find that one.
I mean, you're right. We're not writing the story at all yet. You're spitballing.
Yeah, so my response to if anyone's listening to this and wondering why we're not writing the story, it's because we haven't gotten there yet, and this is still the brainstorming stage. We're still coming up with ideas and
pitching.
setting up pitches.
Your look into, because people have seen other stories written by people before. This is your look into this story room. This is like as close
This
as
is how it
we're
works
able
when
to
you
get.
have multiple people coming up with a story.
Exactly,
And not just
and-
one person sitting down at the computer just typing away without
Yeah.
checks or balances.
Exactly.
Then you
So
get that
it's still in a
reason.
brainstorming stage. So once everything is more well realized, it's something that could begin actually taking form as a real story. But at the moment, it's still pitching ideas.
All right, bring on the message boards.
All right,
go.
so message boards. So there, since last episode, we had a bunch of new ideas and concepts brought to the table. I think the biggest one that I thought was awesome, that to me is essentially canon at this point, was Umatu, and he added on to the idea of the Mask of Time.
Right. Let's talk about that real quick.
Essentially, because we had always talked about how the Mask of Time splits into pieces and the Toa have to gather each piece and everything, he had this awesome concept where the mask, each fragment of the mask actually has its own unique attributes of time, certain powers that are attributed to it from,
Properties?
the overall. Yeah, properties. Good, that's a good word for it. I'm trying to find the topic here, but I can't seem to find it.
Umatu, save us. Post it. Post your
I found it.
Okay.
Okay. So the mask is set up into 6 different fragments, and they all have certain powers to them. The names of the fragments were the erstwhile fragment, I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation of this, epochal fragment, the fleeting fragment, the hastened fragment, the enduring fragment, and the imminent fragment.
The only thing that, the only fragment that I'm against, and that's only in terms of like content of power, is I think it's erstwhile, where you can rewind. Again, that's like that brings in too many things that I feel will make the story convoluted.
Yeah. So the actual powers that each fragment has, fleeting will slow everyone else, which makes yourself fast. So essentially, it's like a speed boost. Enduring, you freeze an object in time. So let's say someone is chucking a rock at you, you can stop that rock and freeze it, and it's just sort of floating there, I'm assuming. Imminent, you can see the near future. So this is sort of, I guess it's sort of similar to Karzani's like infinite chaos mask, where you can sort of see alternate realities. Except in this one, I'm assuming the usage would be much smaller in scale. Epochal, you can see the far past. That one is interesting. I'm going to come back to that one, Epochal, because that's interesting a lot. Hastened is speed everyone else, so you're slowing yourself down. And erstwhile is reversing an object in time. So if someone's chucking that rock at you, you can reverse it back at
Okay,
them.
if it's just one object, that's different.
Doctor Strange
than
eats an
time
apple,
travel.
he rewinds the apple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think the confusion starts to get into place as to what is defined as an object and like how powerful that can be.
Totally.
Because I think, yeah, if it's like you're taking a bite out of an apple and you want to continue eating that apple, so you just reverse time to get rid of that bite and you just keep
Yep.
eating that first bite over and over again, that's pretty cool. like
I
that.
thought that Doctor Strange handled it very well. It was one of the only movies about time where I didn't walk away questioning plot holes.
I did.
Alright, whatever.
A lot.
Well, everyone's a critic.
Good for you, man. Good for you.
You
I'm not saying
Yeah,
that movie. I love the
Well,
movie.
Doctor Strange.
I love the movie,
Doctor
but-
Strange does do a interesting thing where he rewinds time, but time still continues forward in front of him. Just certain things don't. The only issue with that is that I feel like, again, that it's very hard to convey that necessarily.
Yeah, especially when we don't have like an actual show to showcase these things, and we have to explain it with words.
Here's what we could do. We could do a thing where it does not affect organic objects. So you couldn't eat an apple, but you could like reform a city, or not even city, maybe city's too big, but like a staff, right? You
that's
snap
way
it in
too
half.
powerful.
You can rewind that and like reattach
honestly,
it.
one of those powers sounded a lot like the stasis ability from Zelda.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Freezing in time.
Freezing in
Yeah,
time.
basically,
Interesting.
Yeah,
That's how I'm
Um,
imagining
really cool.
it.
The real Scorpion Strike in our studio audience says, I put forward an alternative idea to replace the erstwhile power that's more of an opposite to enduring, decaying. Decaying would extrapolate the natural forces to which an object would be subjected in its current location to cause it to crumble / delay / otherwise rot and erode as it would if left there for ages.
Totally
That
down.
actually works pretty
That's
well.
better.
I like that.
That's actually really cool.
It can
Yeah,
limit
that's
stuff to
good.
some overpowered situations, but not if you do it well.
Now, here's the only thing, now that I'm thinking of it, the no organic matter and it only affects like objects thing, you could use the erstwhile piece to reform the Mask of Time.
Yep.
That might be like the key piece to reform it. You use it,
Yeah,
and then
that's a
like,
good point.
you have to have all the I mean, you could apply limitations to it, right? Like you have to have all the pieces of whatever you're trying to reform around you. You have to like be able to.
Lets it happen.
That's the piece that lets it happen.
I mean,
No
or-
organic matter.
It could.
That is a very interesting thought.
Amatu did suggest in the studio audience that it would be a very small size, like that of maybe a bubble, maybe a tiny bubble, maybe a big bubble, stuff like that.
Bubble
Right,
trouble.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like if we start limiting it like that, where it can only affect certain objects, and it's usually just as a repair function, as opposed to actually being able to scrub back in time and do something, that could work as well.
I guess the way I'm imagining the original intent of it, it sort of reminds me of Tracer's rewind ability. Yeah. I guess if it can only affect either like the wearer or like the just a single object, but time continues to move forward despite that, it could potentially work, I guess. But it is still a bit, it's still a little too crazy of an idea.
Yeah, no, I mean, like,
Time
the
is
thing about
messy.
Tracer has an interesting thing, too, where she will go back, technically, to just where she was at that point in time, not
Right.
actually rewind time.
Yeah, she's not actually rewinding, but she's resetting to the state that she was at that
Yeah.
moment.
So that could also be a possible thing that I feel works as well. Well, we'll,
I mean,
we'll
she
think about this in,
reloads
like...
by sending her gun magazines back in time.
I never noticed that. Does she
I
actually
didn't
do
know
that?
Yeah.
Wow.
They like pop out and they just go back in time to when they were full of ammo.
That's awesome.
I did
I
not
never
know that.
noticed.
That's
that.
amazing. I literally never knew that.
I main Tracer and I never noticed that.
Kuma dropping the trivia facts. You got any more?
Roadhog sucks.
I
Alright,
like that one.
Get out of here. I'm not gonna
I don't
ask
know.
you
I
anymore.
really love this idea. I think the way that Omachu presented it is outstanding because I love the visual of seeing all the pieces and how they fit together. I especially love this idea he had that there's no eye holes. So when you wear the mask, you are completely blind. And he says here, the user must focus to maintain control of the mask. Blinded to the present, the past, and future become more clear. Blinded to the present, the past, and the future become more clear in the mind's eye. I love that idea.
I think it's a really unique idea too, and it causes a very unique mask design.
Yeah.
Though, if the design of the mask itself, I feel could maybe use a bit of touching up, especially with the bottom holes, and it might behoove you, Umatu, to make a side view where there's an actual character wearing it, perhaps.
Behoove Yamato.
Sigh.
I'm just like, here's what I'm imagining at this point, which actually would be kind of cool, is if like you put on the mask of time. You know, like how when the avatar would enter the avatar state, how it like kind of turned black around him, and he could see he looked down and could see the row of avatars. But like if like Tahu puts on the mask and he looks down and he can see all the past versions of himself back to when he was like just born.
Well,
Like,
okay.
they're all lined up.
That is essentially what I was going to get at when it came to the epical
Right.
piece where you could see the far past, because there's a lot of awesome suggestions that we've already said that we don't want to do, which is essentially that each Toa has sort of an avatar-ish relationship with their past selves where they can look back and communicate with the past Toa. And that's a really cool idea, but I really wanted to avoid that simply because Avatar's already done that pretty well, and it seems a little too convenient for our characters to be
Yeah,
able to
it
access
seems
that. But
kill
there
me.
is like this, but there is this big mystery surrounding what happened to the Toa before our current Toa that I think would be a nice plot to sort of follow and have that kind of thing continue and branch out. But this gives us a great way of actually looking back and seeing the past Toa, or seeing what happened to them, or figuring out what's going on in the world without having them directly communicate with any of the Toa.
One thing, so I did have this comic series a while back where this character had this ability, what I called foresight, where he could look into the future or look into like in the past or whatever, but only in his field of vision. Like that was like the only thing that he could see. So if he wanted to see something that happened back in the past, you know, on this other side of the island, he had to go there
That's
physically.
awesome. So like,
And then had to look back. Right.
say like Liwa had it, and like
Right.
he walks or she walks over to the Toa canister that's been like decayed and aged or something, and like she can look at it and see like what happened to it over the course of time. Oh, and dude, and then the state of change one, the one that like can reverse the state of that object, that could like we already got rid of that one though.
Picture concept.
Okay, so like just the idea of like, okay, so we've got the Toa canister that's been decayed and like overgrown and everything,
Right.
and to access their weapons they need to open it, so they could just simply like use the erstwhile one to reverse its state to the point of it being new.
I think that honestly, the more I'm thinking about the erstwhile one, I think that could work. That could, instead of making that decay, we can just have it regress. Well,
And why not both?
part of it though is that like the like if you think about a Toa canister, the moss that grew over it would also be organic. So
And it would.
Yeah.
And it's technically separate from the canister.
Let's make it 7 fragments
Exactly.
and give one to Moriki.
I mean, I think if we just limit it to like a certain area of how much it can actually affect, then it could work.
We need to watch Ninjago Hands of Time and see how they handle this.
I don't think
And-
Ninjago Hands of
I
Time
don't
is going to
think
help us at all.
Ninjago is not going to be the gold standard for how we're going to.
Well, they have this
Yeah.
exact same kind of thing with time travel where like you can only do like one person, you just roll the clock back like Tracer. I want to see like how it's done in a visual sense. See if it creates new
I think there are plenty of better things that handle time that we could probably watch over Ninjago Hands of Time.
I'm ready to watch
But
it.
Yep.
okay.
Next
But
comment.
yeah, so I mean, I feel like these pieces in tandem could be used really well. I believe in the pitch, once you connect them all and have the Mask of Time in its full form, you can only use it once, right, before it splits up. Or
Okay, what exactly
that
can you
was
do?
our suggestion. I'm not sure if that's carried over in this pitch by Umatu or not.
What can the full Mask of Time actually do?
Yeah,
Can it
I'm
do
assuming that the
everything?
full Mask of Time could essentially do everything here, but it would have to be limited to some extent.
I think it should be
Well,
able to
it
do
can
all
do
these things in a grander scale.
Well, here's what I was gonna say. It can do one of the 6 on a grander scale before it splits up. They choose to freeze everything, but they could also look back and see how, you know, like the island was at one point, and
The entire
you know,
island from a bird's eye view. Watch when the island
Right.
was made, the creation of the universe, like all the metaphysical stuff.
right.
Interesting.
Or I mean, or they could use, you know, they could do different powers on a very large scale. So if you have an ancient city, for example, they could rewind that ancient city and repair all of it.
Totally down.
Scorpion Strike suggested it can do all of the things, but requires tremendous power to do so, like the power that one gets when lots and lots of people believe in / worship them.
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense because no one worships Arashi,
The
and they're the
Rockshire
one
the
that use it
ones
first.
using it to. Yeah.
Right. But perhaps that could be explained by they don't have the power it takes to truly use the mask the way it should be, and maybe that's why it splits in half or splits in pieces.
Maybe.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, because they don't have the power enough to hold it, so
Right.
that's why it splits. That actually could work really well. Like, it could be that. Like, so the idea that I had is that they were Makuta in the first year really isn't a presence, but the mask of control is kind of like Loki's staff, and it's kind of influencing them in terms of, like, you know, what they should do and that kind of deal. And so one of the things that could be brought out of that, Makuta has never had to not use the Mask of Time and not had it, like, because he was one of the great spirits beforehand. He never had it blow up on him, so he assumes that they'll be able to use it and it'll work just fine, but it can't.
Perhaps, yeah. It's not an awful idea.
Oh, and then yeah, you could do the thing where, oh, hey, okay, this could all come back together. This actually could all work. It's funny because I was like wanting to write off erstwhile at the beginning, and now it's like actually a thing that I can see working. Okay, so Makuta wants to have the Mask of Ultimate Power, right?
Mhm.
and he wants to kind of combine himself. So he's wanting to revert himself, or maybe something to the point that it was. The Toa, if they defeat Makuta, might use it to restore the if we have like a headquarters, an ancient city that was like destroyed, as we were talking about, the city of the great beings or whatever. They restore that, but as restoring that, they also get rid of Karzani's jail, and that's why he gets.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
Right, so they're bringing back the island to its greater glory, and they're like, we did it, we saved everyone, everything's back. And then Makuta's like, but you idiots, you know why this is destroyed in the first place? Because we had a battle here. That's why.
Nice.
And they're like,
what do you think is hiding down below? Why do you think it's all in ruins? Because no one can go here anymore. So we freaking sealed them.
Nice, and that's when it's like the brothers of the legend. They never said anything about two brothers. It was three brothers.
Three
brothers.
Or they think that they're reviving, like they're using it to like revive Ikimu.
But Karzana comes out instead.
Yeah, exactly.
Karzani
And then
comes out.
both Ikimu and Makuta are mad at them. It's like, what did you do? Why did you do this? I was okay being dead.
Karzani rises from his little tune. He's like, yes, rejoice.
So
Looks at the Toa. You're
Somebody posted a
pure.
very applicable SpongeBob.
Wada just posted the greatest picture. That is essentially exactly
Did it,
what we're talking about
Patrick? We
here.
saved the city.
Has
We
to be
saved the
video.
city.
That's
Yeah,
incredible.
Spirit Beast Striker essentially saying what the pitch is. Yeah, the pieces, or like either pieces were used to build Karzani's jail, or like the entire, like they essentially like chained him, they froze him, and then they collapsed the entire city on top of him to keep him
Indeed.
sealed.
Yeah.
So they deconstructed jail by turning that all backwards. So that could work.
That could work. I like it. All right. So that is that pitch. There were several other pitches. Now, I don't even know how to begin to talk about what we're going to be talking about, because there's a very
So we get
there are
into this.
levels to what we're about to discuss.
I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for it.
I don't know which one he's talking about.
Abandoned.
They all kind of connect together.
Oh yeah, I guess I kind of do.
It's a
Abandon
big
all
circle of things and discussions, and I don't even know how to start it.
Legs are coming back, guys.
Yeah, I just gotta pre-warn
They're gonna
people.
kick us.
You said that, and immediately someone left.
Guys,
Yes.
we're sorry.
I gotta be honest. We are about to talk about the legs again. And we're gonna try and keep it brief. We're gonna try, because there are multiple facets to this
Dropbox there.
discussion. There are multiple facets to this discussion, and we're not gonna be talking about the legs for the entirety of it, but the legs do tie into what we're about to discuss.
yeah.
Right.
So I'm going to try to avoid the actual legs as much as possible as we try to explain what's going on here. So, oh man, I don't know where to start. There have been other pitches. Ever since last week, there have been pitches regarding Toa. Essentially, like several of these pitches that I've seen are about a supposed eighth Toa being introduced into the story.
Or just other Toa-esque
Or just
characters.
other Toa in general, Toa Wars, past Toa, future Toa, Toa being introduced that aren't our
Essentially-
main six.
Auxiliary Toa.
Yeah, that's a good word for it, auxiliary Toa. I like it.
Thank you.
I think it's safe to say that outside of our six and our one extra Variki character, I think
No
we're
other
all on the
Toa.
same page.
Yeah.
That we are not having any other Toa at all in the story.
None.
We ain't
Right.
having it.
Right.
Correct.
What were you saying, Mesa?
The only other way we would ever have more Toa is like kind of like how G1 did it, where as the years go on, a new Toa team takes the
Yeah.
rank when the old Toa are retired or put on the back burner.
Yeah.
But that's
Or
like
killed.
I'm talking like years down the line, and it would have to be a complete new Toa team. There will never, under any circumstances, be a new Toa just thrown in, an 8th Toa, multiple other Toa intermixing with the current ones, or a Toa war, or just random Toa characters.
Yeah.
And yes, we have definitely seen Umatu's
A Toa
excellent
war.
artwork.
A Toa war would absolutely never happen.
No.
As established
war
by the
would
rules of
definitely
our world, there will only ever be 6 Toa at a time, or
Yes.
7. 7 is the most,
Seven
because
Toa, yeah.
7 is the most. There is never going to be any more than 7 Toa at a time. So a Toa war would literally never happen. I mean, you could have maybe a Toa battle between the 6, where they all come to odds with each other.
Which we've
Right,
seen
but
before
the
in
gods
Generation
don't
1,
gift two
during
people.
the first 3 years. That happened on several occasions. So that's fine. But
The gods don't give 2 people with the powers of a Toa at the same
Right.
time.
There can only be one
that's
Tohatsu at a
like
time.
That's the whole deal.
And yes, for
So,
all
okay.
asking, we have seen Umatu's concept art. We have seen other people's. Concept
We've seen all the art
We've
that's
done
been
all the
posted.
people- that's
Other
what
people also
prompted
have
this.
other people also have wars. Other people are wanting to do these things.
Yeah, there have been a lot of
This-
suggestions. We've been keeping up with it quite
yeah.
a lot. This has been a
So-
The
discussion.
issue is not that stuff isn't cool. It's super cool. It's all really well done, and of course we like to see it. However, when it comes to introducing new characters, and we're not going to beat around the bush here. Toa are the main characters in the story. Regardless of what you think about the discussion, the Toa are the main characters. They're the protagonists. The focus has to be heavily on them. When you introduce new Toa, well, you have to focus on them now. You have to give them some amount of
You have to
focus,
stretch
and no
it
matter
out,
how much
right.
focus you give to them, that takes away from the focus of others.
And even if
give
you
take.
don't focus on them, even if you are to introduce another Toa, like an 8th Toa, who's not a core part of the story, well, then at that point, what you've done is just you've added another Toa element that is not special anymore. And the Toa need to be special. They need to remain a special thing. And if there's an 8th Toa who's evil or who's not a main character, who's just a side character, you're adding more auxiliary characters to the status that is saturating what makes the Toa special. So eventually, if there's too many Toa, then it's no longer relevant to be a Toa. It's not special to be a Toa.
Yeah.
It's not.
The reason this worked out well for Generation 1 is because it's inherently different. Generation 1...
I don't think it did work out very well for.
Honestly, I
Generation
didn't.
one.
I thought there was too many Toa. What happened to the Toa Mari?
Explain. I'm not saying that there weren't too many
Irrelevancy.
Toa. I'm just saying that they did it differently. The way they did it is they just recycled characters, so you didn't have to get reinvested into someone. Who
being
are
said,
3
yes,
main
the
Toa
Mari got
teams?
wrecked.
The Toa Mata, the Toa Metru, and the Toa Nika. They're all characters we knew in the first 3 years.
Yeah, but then it's like, okay, but then we also had Lacan's Toa team that had like
I agree.
freaking 20
I agree.
different
Yeah,
Toa.
No
14
And-
Toa, and then we had the Lesovic's Toa team. We had the
Lesovic's Toa
Jovan's
team.
Toa team.
Auxiliary, non-essential.
All these-
Nope, back.
all these.
Yeah.
Yes, but the fact that they were
I know, I'm
non-essential
agreeing
and
with you.
auxiliary is
We're
the part
agreeing
that
here.
sucks.
There's no contest.
Right.
I'm not.
Yeah.
When I'm making these statements, I'm addressing everyone listening, not just you. So, anyway, but yeah, that's part of the problem is that these auxiliary Toa are just that. They're auxiliary. They're not contributing to what makes a Toa special, and they're saturating that element. We want to keep the focus on our core 6 and our extra 7. That is what we're sticking with. So no other Toa. And I think I mean, I'm not sure if we actually reached a consensus on this, but I feel like we have. I believe it's been stated before that it's been a long time since there have been Toa, right? That's something we agree with.
The last Toa were around. I mean, I'm not going to say 1,000 years ago, but it's a good amount of time back to where
Essentially,
really
the
anyone
last
remembers them.
time Toa were needed on the island has been enough time that stretched between that people living on the island now have no recollection of when they needed Toa before.
Right. Or I mean, or like the idea that like they are
Just like
mythical.
complete myths.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
myths, exactly.
Right.
They're mythical. No one even knows that they're real things. They're legends. It's not. It's been so separate from when we had a last Toa that it is the concept of it being a real tangible thing is sort of like us talking about the Greek gods as though they're fake. Well, that kind of implies that they are real.
As if they're fake, but
As
we
if
all
they're
know
fake.
they're real.
They are fake, but as if right now we're talking about them like story characters, right? We make there's a Disney movie about Hercules, right, where the Greek
Right,
gods are like cartoons. But there was a time when people believed in them as real things.
No, I mean, look at Thor now, right? Can you imagine like another universe where it's like the movie is like, you know, Jesus, and there's a guy who gets claimed the power of Jesus, and it's like that's exactly what it was. People used to worship Thor with the same kind of reverence, and now it's like, oh no, Thor's here, and Loki's also a villain of the Avengers. You know, imagine like Satan was like the main antagonist of the Avengers movie. You know, and it was like, that's what it used to be like. So
Yeah. So right now, in our current state on the island, the Toa are legends, they're myths, they're not, or at least to the people, they're not real things.
Now here's a question
So-
I want to pose both to the live studio audience and to the audience actually listening to this on YouTube. I see people disappointed they have OCs, and they're like, well, because of this rule, my OC cannot work in universe. I have these cool character concepts. It's not working out. My question to you, audience question, is why can they not be Matoran? And
This is the problem.
I want to
Okay,
know
here-
I want to know the thoughts on that before we go forward. Why can the OCs
Because they need to
not
be the
work
main
as
characters.
Matoran?
They need to be in the spotlight.
Yeah, see, that was the problem that I kept running into whenever I was like talking on these topics. I was like, hey, why does it need to be a Toa? Why are you trying so hard to make this a Toa? Because a lot of these pitches, they're all around this concept that they need to be either Toa, or they're fake Toa, or they're deceptive Toa, or they're made to look like Toa. They have to be Toa.
The
And it was
Toa's
just-
in there somewhere.
It was just getting on my nerves. It's like, no,
And the
they don't
answer
need to be
pretty
Toa.
much
We don't
come
want
to,
more Toa.
And the answer is, from what I'm seeing here, at least from the limited reply pool so far in the studio audience, is you'd have to give them short legs, though Matu says that's an easy fix, and also Matoran don't have powers. The Toa do.
Okay, well that's wrong
I
because
think
the
the
Matoran
Nobody
don't
wants
have
to
powers.
do
That
that.
is wrong.
Person
But
RPG playing a
okay,
human.
this is essentially what I was saying beforehand. When you devalue Matoran too much, no one wants to be a Matoran.
And here's
So
where
all
this comes
the-
in.
Yes,
They're all
here's where the
tied
leg
together.
conversation has
I
to be
feel
relevant.
right. The leg conversation came back in this because
Essentially,
Lara's
essentially what it was I was seeing as the community was making their OCs exactly what you, Kahi, were trying to say a couple
Right.
weeks ago about how devaluing the Matoran, all the people trying to build their armies and everything, are not going to be able to do that with Matoran and short legs. It was like I was literally seeing that happen in front of me.
it's like it's the thing.
Crazy.
When you devalue it, no one wants to do it. And,
Here's my thing.
That's what I was saying.
I still disagree with it because in Generation 1 Matoran were way more less useful than they are in this pitch.
More valued.
Less valued. Far less valued. Matoran in Generation 1 had no powers. They only had like quirks basically where I can breathe, I can be underwater for a little bit longer than you can. They had the potential to turn into Toa, but that was never a guarantee. One singular Matoran could never do anything near one singular Toa could, but people
Okay.
still made themselves Matoran.
Right.
I do want to address this argument because I really don't like this argument, honestly. Because you're not wrong in the sense that obviously the Matoran in G1 were less valuable than the Toa characters, and obviously they were weaker and more useless. Sure, but I feel like that point doesn't really contribute much to the G3 conversation because we don't want a
Right.
Matoran to be like that. We want them to be special, just not as special as the Toa.
Exactly, which is
I'm-
why I wanted them to be the same height and gave them elemental tricks so that they can still pose a threat, just not exactly in the same way as a Toa. Toa still are very special. Toa still have elemental powers that are beyond the scope of other Matoran. But
And it's not to say I don't get the point, because I do understand sort of where you're coming from. It's like, okay, so why is everyone suddenly getting so angry that the Matoran are being perceived as useless when they've always been useless before? That I understand that point, but I do feel like it's getting a little lost, in because people aren't necessarily focusing on the fact that the Matoran used to be useless. It's this now, right now in our G3 pitch, they're useless, or at least they're perceiving it to be useless. Now, for me, I didn't have that perception. I don't think the short legs contribute to that at all. I feel like you can still be important and have the short legs, but obviously, now that I'm seeing the feedback and the reception and the OCs that people are making, it's very clear that even if people are saying they don't necessarily think it makes a difference, it's obviously making a difference.
right, exactly.
thing-
I've been seeing people who thought the argument was dumb and calling me out in the comments, then also not
And then
doing
making
anything
Toa
Matoran.
OCs.
Right,
The
exactly.
same
making
people
Toa
doing
OCs.
it. Yeah.
Exactly, because I'm like, that's what I'm saying. And we're not going to be able to have this conversation with the majority of people out there. This is how the general audience is going to take it, how the general fan base is going to take it.
The thing that perplexes me, and I still want to address the Matoran point, because Matoran should absolutely still be, generally, singularly, as one Matoran will always be useless in comparison to
No,
a group.
I don't
In comparison
think
to a group,
so.
Matoran,
I don't like this word
yeah,
useless.
absolutely.
I
mean,
think
I think
one of the
One
greatest.
man can't make a difference.
It's like, you know,
If we
Batman's
have-
a member of the Justice League, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, if we have a Matoran character who is been a warrior their entire life, learned to fight, has always been this incredible fighter, village leader, you know, super champion fighter guy, right? And they go up against Liwa, the Toa, who's just become a Toa, has just got their Toa powers, but Liwa, as of right now in our current backstory setup, has no previous history with fighting. That Liwa should lose the fight,
I don't think
regardless
so.
of the power set that Liwa has.
I
Yeah.
don't think so.
I think she
on,
should.
on the sheer
I think she should.
basis of elemental power, no, the Matoran loses. In that kind of a confrontation, the Matoran will have to lose.
Skill is always more valuable than raw power.
I
That's
thought
how it's always been.
how-
That's
I
how it's
thought that's
is
what
in everything.
we wanted our Toa to learn too.
Exactly.
To
That was
Right, that was the
the whole
progression.
I
thing.
wonder how many of you
That was a
remember
progression.
the second Bionicle 06 book, Dark Destiny.
Yeah, no,
I know what
bringing
Dalu
that up because I'm
temporarily
with you
took
guys,
Avok
like-
out.
I feel like
get
the
it.
fight against the Void Nui Matoran and the Toa is a pretty good example of how they should be treated. A Toa would stomp a Matoran because they have more resources available, but using teamwork, strategy, and tactics, Matoran can stand a chance and actually get some good shots in.
Again, teamwork.
We shouldn't
that's
make the
my
Toa too
entire-
close.
Not
to
even
being
just teamwork. I feel like
No, one
that like
Matoran
of a
should
very
never
skilled
be
Matoran.
of any value against a character
I
of
think
greater
so.
power.
Of equal skill, Toa beats Matoran. Of unequal
Right.
skill, Matoran can beat Toa.
Right. Exactly.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think Matoran can stay there a little bit longer with a little bit of extra skill, but in the end they lose.
In what way do you
But I
imagine?
think if there's no way for any of these characters to beat the Toa, then you are essentially making the Toa too powerful. They're OP
Right.
at this point.
Well, I am curious. Like, I understand the sentiment, what you're trying to say, Jay, but just like think it through in a practical sense. The Toa are new. Do they immediately know how to fight, like very well after becoming a Toa?
Certain don't, certain do.
Do they immediately know how to use all of their elemental powers or
I don't know.
mass powers immediately after becoming a Toa?
They don't.
If they
So
don't,
they're
Keep in mind, if we're under the if we're still going with, which I'm not sure if we are or not, but if we are still going with the fact that their elemental powers have been dormant this entire time, they don't even know how to use elemental powers at all.
Yep.
Going
Whereas
into
all
the
the other
Toa.
if they
Matoran
don't
on
have
the island
elemental
have a leg
powers,
up.
then obviously yes, they lose to a Matoran on the sheer basis that they don't know how to control powers. Of course, it makes a lot of sense.
But
So,
this is the argument we're making though, is that
Yeah.
essentially that's the same thing as saying they don't know how to fight. They don't know how to effectively use their Toa powers because they've got no skill or experience to make them an effective fighter. So if they are going up against an effective fighting Matoran, then yeah, they could potentially lose.
My argument is not on the basis of them fresh out the gate. It's not
Okay, well, yeah, obviously,
what
if we've got,
talking
yeah,
Well,
obviously,
yeah,
if we've
that's
got
what we're talking
experienced
about.
Toa, then yeah, they
Right.
wouldn't lose a fight
that's
to a
what I'm
Matoran.
talking
Right.
about. A standard Toa that knows how to use their elemental powers.
But the thing is, the difference is,
That wasn't the topic.
yeah, the point is though that doesn't make the Matoran useless though. If a Matoran can beat a Toa who's not experienced at all, that's not a useless Matoran.
Useless
that
is a
Matoran
little bit
skilled.
hyperbolic, I will admit.
Oh, of course it is.
That's why I tried to say earlier on this discussion, not as useful, not as valuable as a Toa.
Yeah.
Right, but I feel like it's still like a, you know, like there have been instances where, I mean, in comics we have matchups all the time, right? There's one instance in the Ultimates where Captain America like beats up the Hulk, and that's because at that point in time the Hulk has, you know, he's been dazed, he doesn't have his wits around him, and Captain America is a very skilled and very
I mean,
accomplished fighter.
Sure, you can do
Now,
anything in any
not even
specific
close to being as
example
strong.
or any hypothetical. That's fine.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that like that concept still holds true. Where even though a Toa has tremendous amounts of power,
Like Spider-Man, for instance, he's got all kinds of raw power, but he loses fights to people that have no power at all the time.
Spider-Man loses
lost
Captain
to
America all the
Cap.
time.
I mean, sure, and these are all
Yeah.
human. So I get what you're saying.
okay.
I'm saying as far from in this regard.
I don't get the difference.
Okay, I'm lost at this point. What we're even like, I don't know who's on
Listen,
what
this
side
is not
or
what I
what we're
wanted to
debating.
discuss.
I
This
will
is
make my
not
side clear
At all what I
really,
wanted
like, right
to get
now.
to. I was trying to.
I think we've
make
got
it the point
derailed.
we got to this.
Let's
And I
reroute.
completely forgot
Alden
it.
What-
made a
what point
statement
are you
that we
trying
all
to get
thought
to?
was-
That's the
Interesting.
problem. I completely forgot it in the midst of all this.
Well, I mean, like, what's your
Okay.
solution then? If you think the Matoran should be useless, what's your solution to this too many Toa
Now I
power?
remember it. Okay, so what I had intended to say is that if you're going to make some OC, some creative character, and it's a Toa, Well, there are only 7 Toa now, so it's not going to factor into anything. They have to be Matoran. And if you want that character to contribute to the story, it absolutely has to be a Matoran. And in this, the Matoran aren't completely useless. Historically, yes. In Generation 1, Matoran are singularly just a single Matoran. Because I've said several times, groups of Matoran, they do a good job of doing X, Y, and Z. One Matoran has never taken out the big bad permanently.
Well,
Because it's not his
Takua.
destiny.
I'm just kidding.
But
No, I mean,
but if you're gonna make an OC and you want it to affect this pitch, it will absolutely need to be a Matoran. If you want to just do your own thing, it doesn't matter. It never mattered in Generation 1. People would make themselves Matoran, Toa. It was irrelevant.
right, but
Here's the
but-
problem. Here's where it starts to come up, because I can agree with that until we start actually talking about trying to implement these characters into the actual canon, right? So a lot of these suggestions that people have made are obviously they're trying really hard and desperately to make them a Toa. They're trying some like big roundabout way of making this character either seem like a Toa or semi-Toa or pseudo-Toa, Toa. Thing is, with some of these concepts, they're really good concepts. The Akmu concept that Umatu made is really good. The 8th deceptive Umarank-looking Toa is really good. These are awesome concepts that I do want to implement. But then my suggestion is, well, why does it have to be a Toa? Why can't we just make it a Matoran character? But then it's like, well, if it's a villain Matoran character, what chance do they possibly have against our Toa characters? How are we going to make them actually relevant as villains if they're just Matoran? Especially Akmu and his gang of like Po Wahi raiders, where they're like going around wrecking havoc. Like that's an easy fix for a Toa to solve.
I feel like
Our Toa are a bit too powerful in our universe right now, where
Right.
it's consistent of a lot of Matoran characters and a lot of Matoran focus. With the way we have our Toa right now, it doesn't make any sense. Before in G1, it made sense because you had different species. You could introduce the Paraka. You could introduce the Vortex. These
I mean, it wasn't
characters can be
always
bigger.
like that. They
Yeah, but-
expanded the races of the universe, and the Skakti being the exception.
Well, no.
They were introduced that way. Bionicle introduces one-offs. They've always done that. G2 did it, G1 did that. Kreka, Nidiki, Rudaka, Sidorak, Kitangu, Umarak, Kulta. They don't need full species. They are unique characters, and where they come from or
But
who
how do
are
they make sense
isn't
in our
really
G3
relevant.
world?
Yeah, but in our G3 pitch, that doesn't.
They don't make
apply, though.
sense.
Right. They don't
Unless
make
we
sense.
have, like, obviously we can still have Makuta power characters up. That's a thing that can happen. But are we really going to do that for every single antagonist introduced here, especially with the Akmu pitch?
I mean,
especially
who created, refresh my memory, who exactly created the denizens of Artaka? Gods?
the
great beings.
Yeah, the
Great
great
beings.
beings. Yes.
Why do we have to name every single species to fit our canon? We don't have to. Just say, why can't they have created more than
Naming
Matoran?
them isn't the problem.
It's not the problem.
It's having other species to begin with.
I think
Right,
that's
the
the.
concept
I
of
think
having
that is
too
the
many.
best solution.
I think the best solution is just to give
G1
everyone
did the
regular
thing where they
legs.
had a lot of species. G1 had excellent world building. If we want to avoid the over complex nature of having a bunch of different species that crop up and make it hard to follow, that's cool. I don't think we need to arbitrarily limit ourselves to where the
No,
only
no, no,
people
no,
on
hold
the
up.
island that exist are Matoran.
Hold up, G3, remember, G1 had great world building in the first 3 years when none of these things are around. After that, it gets kind of murky as to how good that world building actually is.
The story
we
got
say
fairly
that.
murky. The world building was always on point. The Dark
Nah,
Hunters,
Mari
the multiple
Nui?
different islands,
The
the
Voya
culture.
Nui?
I'll agree
The
with
multiple
Meso
different
here.
islands, what do you remember from those
I'll
islands,
agree
Meso?
with Meso. I definitely think that there was still an aspect of world building.
I'm not
Maybe
talking
not to
about
the same
island
There's still an
that we
aspect,
were
but it
on.
wasn't-
I'm talking about like Zia, the Vortex homeland.
Yeah, but that's
like, all this
not
place.
good world building. That's just world building.
Listen, on my
That's
list
just
of
throwing in
problems
another
with
island and a
G1,
species.
I have a laundry list of problems with G1. The species don't even rank. It's not a problem.
Sure. Oh, I mean, no. Okay,
I'm not. No one is saying that they were a problem. The thing is, they make less sense in our world.
Let's fix that. Why can't he have created multiple species? Is there a reason?
why
because why-
are we going this? Why are we going this?
Why
like,
would
long,
they make
extended
another
route?
species?
Yeah. instead of just giving him normal legs. That's what
here
this
we
whole
go.
thing's about.
Oh, here
No,
we go.
no, I am on Kahi's side now. For the record, I think we should just give them normal legs.
And
Whoa.
now you take away the differentiation, the visual difference. Now you have equal.
You do.
them.
You absolutely do. But to me, if you're trying to create all these new Toa characters to try and circumvent that by making your characters important and your villains important by making them these Toa-ish characters, then all you're doing is desaturating the Toa as well. And it's just a big circle. You're either making the Toa less important or you're desaturating what makes the Toa special. And I think that one's worse.
I think
The
it's irrelevant
Matoran-
if they suggest something and it's a Toa, it's not going to work. There's a cap of 7 and that's that.
Here's what I think. I think like the two conversations are quite disconnected. Honestly, the OC conversation versus the leg conversation, because when I think of these characters people are making them, and I think of like one-off villain characters, and if somebody mentioned like an Umarak-esque character, I'm thinking like if we wanted to do a G3 Brutaka-esque character, or like an Axon-esque character. Even if they were Matoran, they won't work as those antagonist roles. Secondary, unless you have it strictly be against the Matoran. Because if we're still going with this shtick, like unless they get powered up, like in G2, where Makuta has like this legion of mooks that he sends out, and he gives Umarak powers, and Kolta is like beefed up by him. Like, if we wanted to introduce Brutaka, for instance, okay, we give all Matoran regular legs, and Brutaka's a Matoran. Great. How does he contribute to the story in any meaningful way? How does he fill an antagonistic role? How does he add anything? He doesn't. He can't go up against the Toa, because he's a Matoran. He can't, he can go up against Matoran,
right,
but they're not
exactly.
main characters. But if he was another species, you could.
What do you mean by another species? What is... Okay, why... The thing that
They have
the reason
unique
why this
traits
elder
that set them
discussion...
apart.
The thing that I feel with this elder discussion that for me makes it more meaningful right now. Skilled people right now are Toa year 1. They are not skilled in anything right now. They have to train. They have to become better. Right now, a trained Matoran can beat them. Easy.
Yes.
He's a skilled formative warrior. And as that happens, as they scale up, there's going to be more people they come across, more people with specialized skills, more people with specialized fighting styles and weapon abilities that can still pose a challenge. They do
Okay,
not
go
have
for
the
it.
elemental
That's
powers.
fine.
I don't see how that is actually going to work. Like, okay, if our discussion was about how a Matoran can beat a Toa in the early stage, like I'm down for that because I like that. Obviously, a Toa has to be good. They can't win by sole grace of being a Toa. But as our story progresses, the Toa become more and more proficient. I don't see how a Matoran can ever hope to scale up to the legendary prophesied heroes without completely ruining suspension of disbelief.
I think that's
I
happens
mean,
in all sorts of stories all the time.
Yeah, I'm not sure because
right.
once again, if I
How
want
is,
to compare,
how is Lex Luthor Superman's greatest villain, right?
yeah,
Contrivance.
I suppose like we want to compare it back to like superheroes, for instance. It's not.
He
It's
gets
not
in a giant mech
It's
suit
not
and uses
contrived.
Deus Ex Machina
No,
kryptonite.
that's a new thing. That's not even anything. In one, he beat Superman by giving him a letter. All right, in Superman Red Sun, he gives Superman a letter, and Superman
In
surrenders.
Mind Games, sure, but we already have a villain like that. That's Makuta.
Right, I'm saying that Batman beats Superman in the same way.
Contrivance.
Not even just with the
kryptonite.
mech suit. Okay. All right. But
I don't
you
know what
see
point
where
you're making. I don't see
this-
what
the
your
point I'm
is at
making.
all.
The point I'm making is that you want all the Toa to be Superman, but the Superman that everyone dislikes, where they're all powerful and cannot.
What
be touched
I
by anybody.
get is that you want to introduce characters who beat the Toa by using gimmicks. I want to introduce
Not gimmicks,
characters who
they're
are
skilled-
actually able to stand up against the Toa regularly. Like you can't in this G3 pitch. If we're doing Matoran and Toa and that's it, you can never have villains like the Paraka, for instance. They beat the Toa because they had unique traits to their species that they used to their advantage. They were not Toa, they were not Matoran, they were something different. They were a different
Explain to me
animal.
how the Paraka work in this world, though.
Easy. Makuta or the Great Beings created an island with other species that we just don't really focus on too much until they're relevant.
And that's not a gimmick.
like Umarak in G2. What's his species?
Umarak. I mean,
Umarak worked perfectly fine. You don't hear anybody complaining about oh, where did he come
To be fair, we never.
Did he? Did he really though?
In my
I
laundry
remember
list.
us
I don't think so.
complaining. I literally remember us complaining about how it made no sense that Umarak came out of nowhere and how he was just formed from the gods, just like the elemental creatures.
he
and
was hunting the
he was
elemental
just
creatures.
somehow here this whole
Well,
time.
the thing is, he
Do you
was a
not
byproduct
remember that
of the elemental
conversation?
creatures. He was literally in a technical sense, I don't know if this is ever official, he was the creature of shadow.
Well, yeah, but
For all
that's
intents
all
and
murky.
purposes, that's what he was.
Yes, but
He's as much the creature of shadow as Akimu is the Toa of light. I don't believe any of that. The website just made stuff up. It wasn't related to anything. But when I look back at like
Okay, well,
G2's
now you lost
flaws, it's all about storytelling. Umarak being a villain, like I don't need to know about Umarak's species to know where he comes from. I don't need to know about Brutaka's species to know where he comes from. I don't need to know about Axon's species to know where he comes from. They work as characters with character designs that fill specialized roles in universe. And I think that's really all that needs to happen at the end of the day. If you
I
have a
think
cool
they
idea for an
worked-
OC, just make them happen.
I think they worked in G1 when they explained it with the islands. Yes, I do. I think it worked there. I don't necessarily want to introduce a bunch of other islands either
Yeah, nor
because
do
that
I.
takes
Right.
away from the island.
That's true.
Right.
I don't want to do that either.
The exact same reason I don't want to introduce a bunch of other Toa because it takes away from the Toa. So that's why I don't want to do that.
I don't wanna introduce a lot
But
of
when you
species.
start bringing up Umarak in G2, I can't agree with you. I
Right.
can't at all. It did not work at all. I think that we had gotten accustomed to forgiving the oddities of G2's plot. I think we
Right.
got accustomed to ignoring the things that didn't work because it's just something that was prevalent with that. And we got used to just sort of forgiving Lego for all the weird, dumb things they introduced with G2's story. But I cannot agree with you in saying that I didn't care or I didn't notice that it didn't make any sense. We absolutely noticed it. We talked about it. We discussed it. We argued about how it made no sense in the podcast.
But when I'm looking at the retrospect of G2 and like what were my biggest problems, it doesn't rank.
And that's fine. I understand that compared to all the other plethora of problems, it's probably not the biggest one there.
They had a cool
But-
character idea. They made a cool dude. Great.
But you
set.
can't tell me it made sense. It didn't make sense.
I'm just not seeing how giving them a toy on regular legs fixes this problem.
It doesn't. It doesn't fix the problem at all.
Because
The thing that it does is it allows us to have more a variety of different kinds of villains that aren't just abominations and creatures that
they can't
Makuta
go
can
against
bring to
Toa.
life.
They
They can though. That's
They
the point.
can.
That's the point we're trying to
That's
make.
what we're saying.
You mean
That's
if-
why the legs should be reduced.
If you want to
Or,
go
I mean,
ahead, let the
literally
Matoran
just-
beat a Toa at combat. Sure, absolutely.
I just spoke
That's fine,
about
but-
this.
But
As the
giving
Toa-
them taller, more like putting them on the same height as a Toa, it devalues Toa. You've said this before.
It does not
I
devalue
just
the
spoke
Toa.
about
The Toa are
this. The
still
Toa
special.
are
I'm a
the
torn- I'm a-
prophesized superheroes. At the start, they're inept. We're doing a 3-year plan. They're going to grow in scale. How the heck can a Matoran grow in comparison to match that power, to actually be a threat?
Matoran alone, probably not going to be able to unless he gets upgraded by Makuta. However, once again, some of the pitches here are not just a single Matoran who's a bad guy. One of the pitches was Akmu, and he has a bunch of different, like, Raider-type characters with him on his side. He's got, like, a small band of, like, evil characters that could potentially be a problem. And if it's, like, if you're reducing it to one location of the island, for instance, then you can have Pohatu having to take care of local issues in his one region because we've already established that the island is really, really large. There's going to be times where our Toa are not going to be united.
If we were presenting a pitch where there are these smaller threats that the Matoran have to face, while the Toa are busy stopping Makuta, that I would be totally down for. Side stories, books, serials, games, flesh out the world, give some, like, gangs, groups of raiders, specialized people. Totally down for that. But the Toa, though, starts to not work all that well.
How
don't
does
see
it
that.
work less than just introducing a new species?
Because then your possibilities are lengthened.
How?
Because different species
What's the
have different
difference?
traits. What's the difference between the Paraka and the Matoran? Skakti have special traits. The Matoran don't. That's why they can keep up with Toa.
Yeah, but the Bulrock had special traits. So they were a threat to the Toa, and they were Matoran.
Because they were barely Matoran. They've been altered so much.
Yeah, they were modified.
They were a
obviously.
threat because they could, like, turn the Toa against each other with Krana and stuff.
That's
Sure, and can we not do that?
I think you can do a lot of different things with Matoran without having to have them on the same height as a
I
Toa.
mean, sure, yeah, the Rockshear Matoran.
They're actually
the
Matoran. You can
Rockshire
make
just
the
as much
Matoran.
Matoran as Borak or Matoran.
Make
And how many
Akmu
times do they
like
want
an
to do the
alpha
thing where, like the
clone.
Matoran get mutated before it gets like played out?
You know, give them all these cool gadgets. Give them mechs. Give them weapons that are specifically designed to fight
still-
against
I mean,
Toa.
like, I guess that's fine, but like, I mean, where are you guys standing on like how useful the Matoran are then? Because like LJ just went on a spiel about how completely useless the Matoran are and how they have no chance at standing up to the Toa. But if our villains,
if you guys want,
if the Rockshi are Matoran, then how does that make sense?
I'll say this. Historically, yes, Matoran have always been useless. If you want to change that, go ahead. I think.
I've always wanted to change that.
Okay,
from
fine,
the
go
beginning.
for it. But remember the hierarchy, and remember a visual hierarchy needs to be kept. It's very important. Matoran.
I don't think it's as important in a system theme.
Wait, what?
I don't think that the height hierarchy is as important in the system theme.
I
Because they're
completely
different
disagree.
figures.
I disagree with that too. I think the
disagree as
hierarchy
well.
is incredibly important. However, I do think that the way things are subconsciously received by the people in the community and everybody that's actually going to be playing with the line is also very important. And to me, when I think about the height hierarchy, obviously I want there to be a power difference between the Toa and the Matoran, and I want that to be very clear right off the bat. But I don't want it to be so clear that the Matoran are so devalued that no one ever even wants to touch them or involve them in any story, and that they don't make sense in the world as a whole. And I
Right.
feel like subconsciously we're doing that by making them that much shorter than them. And I didn't think that previously until I started seeing all these pitches and ideas that people are coming up with, where it's very clear that everybody is trying really hard to avoid making original Matoran characters because the Matoran are simply just not interesting.
Right. You devalue
I
the
think
Matoran.
they're not interesting.
Instead of making the
because our
Toa
world
special
does not
Matoran,
exist
you
yet.
made the Matoran devalued.
In
And
G1,
that's why
would
no one
people
wants to
have
touch
said
them.
the Matoran were interesting before they played Monog? Probably not. But seeing that world makes you want to live in that world. And when you want to live in that world, you pick a character that can live in that world. And then you're a Matoran, and you can do interesting stuff. Like, BZP had comics, and there were a wealth of comics that had Matoran protagonists. Not everybody was a Toa. You know, literature. When you want to live on Matanui, you don't be a Toa, you be a Matoran. I think the reason why right now people are making all these, like, edgy OCs and cool people and, like, the corrupted one in Akmu, it's because our character designs are rudimentary. We have literally not even picked a, like, design template for Matoran yet to show how they could look, so obviously people aren't going to do that for us. I don't think we've advanced to that point where we have a world people want to live in. I think this discussion is, just as the leg discussion was, this discussion is somewhat premature.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Sure.
All right, listen. I'm just
Sure.
here's what I'm
Sorry
saying.
about
It's just like
that just felt like a big sidestep argument to me, but sure.
I
How
agree.
does
with
Yeah,
that-
that.
no,
I mean,
yeah,
is
therefore-
that not the purpose of world building? How am I wrong?
Wait, what do you mean the purpose of world building?
You're saying, like, people aren't making Matoran because they're devalued. Or are they not making Matoran because there's no world for them to imagine living in, and we don't even have a design template for Matoran designs yet? Can you 100% say that's not a fact? Like, if you just looked at Bionicle G1, the instructions, if you went to McDonald's and you saw, like, the poster of the Toa site next to the Matoran, you'd probably say, these guys suck, I don't want to be a Matoran. I want to be a Toa. But then you go and play Monog, and you look at Matoran culture and life and the island and the world and the jobs and the camaraderie, and you're like, huh, the Toa are, like, they're not shown in this at all. They're mythical figures. I kind of do want to be a Matoran.
Yeah, but remember, that was the point that you guys brought up against me, where you're like, the Matoran are always going to be side characters, and they're never going to be. The focus is never going to be on them. And Monog, very much so. The reason I feel like that Monog stands out is because in 2001, it was the only story we got, and they were the main
And
characters.
what I
The
always
Toa are the side
said was
characters.
that I totally wanted, I don't know if anybody else wants this, but literally from word go, I've been like, in this hypothetical world, the main story in the TV show would be the Toa. I would want a game or a side story book or something to be with Matoran life. Because I feel seeing the world through the Matoran's eyes, they're not the main characters, but seeing the world through their eyes is one of the core aspects of Bionicle. It was that way in 01 and it was that way in 06, and it's why, like, it's so important. just not at the core of the theme.
So, with our 3-year pitch, then, we are obviously going to have villains that the Toa are going to be fighting against.
Yes.
Our first wave of villains are going to be the Rakshi. They're upgraded Matoran, or they're just simply Matoran characters as a whole. We could say that in the first half, they are normal Matoran. In the second half, Makuta gives them their sort of Rakshi forms.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. What are our villains for year 2 and year 3?
Well,
Initial pitches, you involve
Because
the
right now, our current story plot line for year 2 is a Matoran civil war.
Yes. that
And
is
Makuta is
interesting.
turning the entire society against each other, which is why I felt like it was important to mention that it's likely that the Toa are going to have to fix local problems.
That does provide the interesting window. That's what prompted this whole discussion in the first place.
Where do if our villains were going to be another race of beings, how do they fit in, and where do they come from? And if we don't want to introduce another island, which I really don't want to, but if we really have to, I
Likewise.
suppose we have to.
I don't want to.
Where do they come from, and why are they prevalent here?
And additionally, if there is a Matoran civil war, don't automatically those characters become of a lot greater importance, both in the story and in the sets.
honestly, I'm not really a big fan of this Matoran Civil War idea. I don't think we should go that route. As far as villains are concerned, if you had to go with the Civil War, go ahead and give, like I mentioned last time this brought up, give them Matoran mechs, give them Matoran and machines or vehicles or something
Year
along those
2
lines.
could present a very interesting avenue for set design with a background of a Matoran Civil War, because yes, that could be where we get into a lot of Matoran-centric stuff.
Vehicles
And you can give them like
stuff
Mixel
like that.
joint mechs or Nexonites mechs or vehicles and stuff. I don't know, and it does bring up the question, and this is kind of where it all feeds in with OCs and why this is being had as a conversation, because where do the Toa fit into all that? Who do they fight? It is an
Exactly.
interesting thing.
Because, I don't like the idea of a Matoran Civil War because it's your second year. You've divided the entire island. There's no camaraderie. You have Toa fighting, presumably, against Toa. They have to fight Matoran, which, as little as possible, we can do that. That'd be ideal. Because the Toa are supposed to be there to protect the Matoran and the island.
I don't think the Toa would ever
Well,
fight
right.
the Toa. They'd probably be pretty unified.
Toa are trying to be the peacemakers, but it is becoming like a lot harder to do.
Yeah,
when you're
when
there's-
between regions, the Matoran are trying to fight
Right.
each other. It's the Toa
Right.
that have to stand in the way of that.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
so
why.
that, and their histories and their friendships would be tested. The friendships that they've already built in year one. When they establish their friendships, they're good friends by the end of it. Then their friendships get tested when you bring family and
Right, and there's internal struggle
occasion.
there.
There's internal struggle there.
The only thing I can
It's
think
why
of... Go on.
I know I keep bringing it up, but it's why I keep referencing the Akmu concept, because I do feel it's a very strong concept, and I think
Agreed.
it could really,
Right.
really work. But, I mean, that is just one example of potential other ones where you can have these Matoran characters who are not good characters who the Toa would have to stop.
Okay,
But
here-
if you are...
Sorry.
Yes.
Here's the interesting thing, what you're saying. So you've said before, you're in favor of upscaling the Matoran's legs so they're on the same caliber, and then if we want to have a Matoran that can go against a Toa, like you're saying, it would be plausible for Makuta to give them upgrades
Yes.
And in the later years, yeah.
in later years to actually accommodate that. Louise says in the chat, it's a similar thing. It'd be cool if we had a side villain for each Toa. So like in year 2, they have like an arch rival, arch enemy kind of thing in this civil war. Akamu for Pahatu, the OC Mariko she's talking about for Liwa, so on. Well, at that point, if they have to be upgraded by Makuta, then does it really matter if they initially had short legs or not? Because the Rakshi presumably had short legs. They were upgraded, quote unquote, even if they were kind
Right.
of transformed into monsters. Could these arch enemies simply
No,
just
probably
be
not.
granted
No,
power?
Makuta doesn't have power during the Civil War. Remember, he's trying to build towards getting his power at the end
Yeah.
of year 2. So Makuta doesn't have any power to give
So these
right
people
yet.
would have
and the
to
third
either
year
be
he could.
inherently strong of their own volition, or find ways to be strong, or find some object or relic or item that could grant them the necessary power.
all three options, I'd rather go for one or two, and I feel like that could work decently well.
I just can't imagine a scenario where that's actually, like, plausible. I need to see concepts. Because I'm not in favor of, like, we already have a main villain who fills that archetype of, like, manipulation and using scheming and intelligence. So, like, you make the Lex Luthor comparison. I don't want to have multiple villains like that. Because then it starts to get, like,
they're not scheming. They're not scheming in terms of, like, they're not chess master villains. They're not going to have a whole bunch of those. But they are very skilled at what they do. It's like
they would have to be chess master villains if we were going to make the Matoran that depowered.
Yeah. They have to win with intelligence.
They would have to.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
But no, I mean, there's a difference. When I say, like, chess master, Lex Luthor does a whole sprawling plan that involves this entire thing, and then, like, it gets better. I'm saying that these people would be more like Deathstroke, for example, where they're very skilled at what they do. They do manipulate. That's not a chess master move, though. That's just being a very skilled fighter.
The Vulture is not a chess master in any regard. Shocker is not a chess master in any regard. Those are still villains that have given Spider-Man a run for his money.
Right.
Have they done that?
And a lot of them use tech to do so.
Right.
In G2 and G3, that would be done via mechs or vehicles.
I mean, could be mechs, could just be different weapons that they have, and the Matorns still have
Could
some
simply be
level of
forces.
elemental tricks that they can use.
It's difficult to conceptualize this an idea alone.
Think like a Sparky Boom Man, for example, and how different he is from, like, other firebenders and everything.
Yeah.
Very true.
I don't know. I mean, I suppose I could go both ways. I guess you're right. Don't necessarily, if they're going to be upgraded, then sure, they don't necessarily need the long legs.
Right,
Though
but
I
that solves the villain problem.
yeah.
That solves the villain problem. It does not solve the fandom problem that we're countering, in which what I was saying beforehand is being, like, is playing out among the fandom, regardless of how we're going to deal with our villains. And this, you might have a solution to deal with our villains. The overarching thing is that no one wants to do anything to the Matoran. No one wants to touch the Matoran.
And I repeat,
everyone wants
we don't
to make
have a
their.
world
No,
yet.
Yeah,
That
I
is
mean,
my counter to that.
I agree with both of you in this instance. I think it's a combination of the two. But it is hard for me to say, like, which one is more important versus the other, because you're right, Mesa. Without a actual world for these Matoran to be in, then it's hard to say whether that would be the case or not. If we had more details and had more stories to provide with them, then maybe it would make more sense.
It's
But
difficult to conceptualize, though, because we don't. And right now, we are looking at the facts as presented to us, and on the message board, this is what's going on. So.
yeah, and I'm just looking at ideas that people are making right now, and some of them are good. And I want to implement some of them. I just don't want them to be Toa. But if they're not Toa, then it's
Right.
It doesn't work.
I don't also want them to all be powered up by Makuta in year 3.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Is like, how much powering up are we going to end up doing
Totally
Right.
before it gets dry?
I would rather avoid it, if possible.
I'd rather avoid it as well.
Here's a comment that made me chuckle. It'd be interesting if the use of mechs was a staple of Makuta's minions, like his name was Mekuta, like Lord of the Mech ones, and at some point it became Makuta. That's great, Scorpion Strike.
So dumb.
And then Krazek
The
asks,
Matoran's name is Kuda.
yeah, exactly.
So once you put him
Krazek asks how would extra villains
So
work
dumb.
within the sets. That's what we're trying to figure out, because most LEGO themes have this, like, thing where there are a couple of primary villains, but then they have armies or legions or just secondary people who kind of act as cannon fodder in the actual sets. Chima has the main characters, then everybody else. Then Jago had, like, the Serpentine leaders, and then the Serpentine. With Bionicle, it's a little bit different. We haven't really got to that point yet, and I think people want to avoid minion cannon fodder as much
Right.
as possible.
Exactly.
So we're looking
I
mean,
much
like,
rather
minions are fine to some extent as long as it's not all the challenges. Like,
Exactly.
Right.
it was tiresome in G2 because that's literally the only thing we ever got, except for, like,
Yep.
Umrak, who was the one character that wasn't.
Totally
It
alright.
was an individual. And we never had actual characters be built out of these villains.
So, like,
That's
right
yeah,
now,
it's like, we can have minions as long as there's other
in
characters
year
with
2,
actual...
I actually do think it might benefit us. Like, this would not solve the entirety of the problem, but I think it would be beneficial if we're going to do this Matoran Civil War. Year 2 would be the year where we have some mechs and we have some vehicles, because I was already skeptical for year 1. We're going to have these sets where it's the Toa and, like, 1 or 2 Matoran per set fighting the Rakshi, who
Right.
are either a regular minifigure or a spider creature, and that's it. Like, then the actual
Yeah.
set is just a location-based backdrop. If we want to up the challenge, we either need more complex builds for figures or perhaps some larger scale brick build. Mech
Yeah, you know what? Like, I mean, I could see mechs working too.
With-
So-
I think. I mean, I don't think the problem is I don't think any of these ideas of vehicles or mechs are a bad idea. I just think that we're still doing all this stuff to justify the Matoran having shorter legs. I don't think it needs to be justified. I think we can just have it be, and people will pick up with that.
Well, I am curious.
I don't think it's going to be a.
because I'm not
deal.
for it at all. I would hate this, but if we wanted to give the Matoran like regular legs after all, then we would need to give the Toa some kind of armor. We need to modify our designs, and I know we've already spoken about that slightly. I'm curious. We should to prep for next week's podcast, and also the community. If you guys want to like do anything besides give your input and everything we've talked about so far, let's see if we could find a non-obtrusive but differing enough armor piece that we could use for Toa in this hypothetical situation where the Matoran have regular legs.
Well, I mean,
Does
don't.
such a piece exist?
Here's what I was thinking beforehand: year 1, no armor; year 2, armor; year 3, super powered armor.
That's what I was thinking as well.
Right. Right. So in year 1, the Toa again have no experience and they have no training and everything. So even though yes, they can be easily seen as special, they're obviously not as skilled or special yet. Which is why even if they look similar to the Matoran to some degree, it's because they're the closest to the Matoran at this point in time. In year 2, when the Matoran are more prevalent, where we have a civil war, right, and we have more Matoran characters, we'll be easily able to distinguish the Toa from the Matoran.
That
because
works.
they have
so
armor
we,
at that
we
point.
have to have some kind of distinction in year 1, though.
I think we can have the distinction in year 1 just by how the
I
Matoran
think we're
work.
gonna have a
Once we come
Chima
up with
scenario
designs, we'll
again.
be able to see that.
Yeah. And unless
I'm
unless
afraid we will, but
unless we figure out a Matoran design, which is what we really should be working on, that can look
Right.
good and effective, I'm gonna always lean to the side of the Toa have to either have armor or longer legs. It's one or
I
the
will.
other.
All right. Well, we're gonna have to see how this happens.
I do
but
I mean,
like-
I will have to say that. I mean, you're not wrong, Kahi. If we wanted to take it from a story perspective, then it does make sense that in the first year they look the most like the Toa, like Matoran characters.
Yes, it does.
Because we did, like earlier we just established that a unskilled Toa versus a very skilled Matoran would lose in that first year when they don't know how to use their powers. So story wise, it does make sense that they would look almost similar too. But
let's see if we have a Matoran design. Let's compare this because right now we were both arguing hypotheticals. I was saying people aren't they're going to disconnect of the Matoran. They're not going to be able to do that, and that was a hypothetical when I was saying it. And you guys are saying people won't be able to recognize the Toa from the Matoran. That's also hypothetical.
Yup.
My hypothetical has come true by what we've seen in the fandom, but we haven't tested your guys's. So if we were able to put a Matoran up and then compare, we should see how many people say, yeah, I can see that Tahu is more powerful than this Matoran design. Or how many people say, I can't tell.
I would like some more.
And then we can
concept.
have a better idea. Because I don't think people are going to have that much confusion, but they might. So,
We need to
I
go to
think
the
that might be
drawing
a-
board
a-
and come
a
back next
worthwhile.
week.
Indeed,
we-
the drawing
we would
board
have
is
to-
imperative.
I wish we had the peer review thing where we could look at the kids, have the kids, and
Focus
see if the
groups,
kids can
yeah.
tell.
A few
The
years.
focus
That's where
groups.
this stuff comes in handy.
Well, we have an advantage over Lego. They had a kid focus group, but they couldn't get a fandom focus group. We have a fandom focus group. We see how the fandom's going to react. We don't have a kid focus group.
That's true. We're inverted.
So, that's
Also,
what
I
was
like
going for.
the baby legs Rick and Morty picture. We do acknowledge that Scorpion's
Listen,
strength.
I've been I was planning this little skit with Commissioner Gordon.
Matoran left and a Toa right investigating a situation.
Detective Hobbit Legs, you're a good detective. But you're also inefficient, which is why I'm pairing you with Detective Regular Legs.
So Vin, Takuma Mange, how are you guys doing?
Pretty
Interview,
good.
rather.
Interesting discussion, you know.
Just biting, just biding my time. I guess.
Biting your
Got
time
any
to
thought,
strike.
insight?
Did you say biting your time or biting your tongue?
I guess a little bit of both. If you couldn't understand, me. Sorry.
I don't know.
Well, we are currently at almost 2 hours, so we should probably wrap this up because we
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
welcome.
we have a live stream in a few hours.
This is true.
Even better.
When is that?
Probably like after a hour and a half break.
Yeah.
Either an hour and a half.
Cool.
It's our monthly Patreon live stream. All right.
Plug
Here's
Patreon,
what
and
we
I want
need
to
from
plug
you.
the boards.
Patreon.com/TTV channel. There you go.
Board.ttvchannel.com. We have a couple of topics up you guys should check out. First of all, Brick Fair, Virginia, if you're going this year. And second of all, our top 10 TTV moments of 2017. Go read the topic and submit any moments that you may have. Obviously, we're not getting any of out of this podcast. This episode, rather.
Can we have the Kahi was right?
I don't know. I feel like the majority of the episode was talking about unique stuff. So
Top 10 moments. Usually it's funny stuff, not debate stuff.
This is not a happy place.
It's not a
Relax
happy
here.
landing.
So here's what we need from you all fans. This discussion has opened up many interesting avenues. We really need to see how Matoran look. I don't know if it's going to be us doing it or some of you doing it, but we need to see some kind of Matoran concept, preferably with and without short legs. I know Vin already whipped up like a rough sketch for last week, which was helpful, but not like obviously finalized. It's just a sketch, kind of like painting thing. We really need to see, because all this conversation has been is hypotheticals. That's how it's been done. John is right about that.
hypothetical of a hypothetical of a hypothetical.
Exactly. We've been focusing on the Toa so much, the Matoran have been this like vague, abstract kind of idea, and we're like trying to figure out what to do with them.
Well, I think we really need to pinpoint exactly where the Matoran fit in this story.
Yeah.
Because I think right now, like Kahi, you and I are sort of like imagining a lot of different scenarios where the Matoran could have relevance and be important in the story, or be like some more than what they have been prior. But
Right.
you guys want to retain them sort of being background characters and never really breaking free from that. And obviously, I'm in the middle there. You know, I kind of want there to
I
be.
recall you being quite strong that they shouldn't be a
Yeah.
focal point too.
I don't want them to be the focal point, but at the same
Right.
time, I do feel like there are places where they can fit without taking the focus away.
I've always said about
Right.
Matoran, I want them to be important enough that you care about saving them. And I feel that's where the line should be drawn. You can't have an abstract... Like, the reason G2 didn't work is because there were no interesting characters to root for. There was an island in danger, why bother saving it? The only relevant people are the protectors, and they have no character. You have to establish an interesting region full of people you like and you want to succeed. Especially, like, I don't know if we're doing this, like, after the first year. Will the island be under constant threat of, like, Rahi invasion while the Toa are fighting Makuta? Because that's where the Matoran come in, that's where they've always done. They're the defense force. The Takoro Guard gotta fight against the Rahi. That's where they excel. They gotta defend their homes, etc., etc. And they help out the Toa when they can.
I mean, I would argue that they excel most when they do something that affects the plot in a major way, to the point where they, I mean, like, that's what they did with the Matoran characters, is that they just turned them into Toa later.
Yeah.
One
So-
go.
Right.
It's mostly
but-
because I've seen good villain concepts. That's what's really changed the thing, and I don't really have any concepts of any other type of villain I
This
can
is
think
true.
of.
I mean, for me, it's I don't see any Matoran concepts, and it's not even just because we're not talking about them. I feel it's because when everything's said and done, people
We need
will. If
Matoran
you,
concepts.
the
we also
average-
need ways to
the
make...
average thing in this world should be the Matoran, and then the Toa are special Matoran. If you make the Toa the regular thing and then devalue the Matoran, no one's going to do the Matoran.
It's all
This is what we're-
perspective. Like,
No.
you only care because they can't pose.
Well, it's not just because they can't pose. I think it sends, like what I was saying, a subconscious message to everyone that these characters are not worth dealing with, and
not
we're
how it
seeing
was in
that play
G1.
out.
I know you say it's because it's
I
distraction,
mean,
not system. People
kind
love
of.
Matoran. They're
I mean,
beloved.
I would
I wouldn't necessarily say that 100%.
I think G2 is probably a better example. I think the
Yeah.
protectors were pretty important. But,
I don't know. I definitely
anyway.
think G1 still holds. Like, Kahi, you made comics. Your character was Matoran. You're very adamant about not being a Toa.
Yeah, but it was because it
was a comedy.
It was a comedy, and the Chimori sprites for Matoran were better than the sprites for Toa. That's why I did that. My if you remember, my character also had elemental powers. The reason why I did that instead of making him the Toa is because I just wanted elemental powers about, having to make it a...
Point
using
being,
Toa
we
sprite.
need to
You
see
are a Toa
Matoran
in your
concepts,
comics,
and we also
so-
need to hear
Jeez,
ideas
Mesa,
of how
oh
the
my
villains
God.
are going to work. in
Actually,
universe.
everyone's a Toa
If we're
in
going
all
to
this
have
comics,
other
so.
villain concepts, and they're not going to be like mutated Matoran, or are they? We need to figure out how that's going to work. Year 2 may or may not be the Civil War. We're currently the Civil War is the topic of discussion. It's probably going to be the Civil War. Year 3, I don't know who would be the villains for that. We need to figure out ways We want to hear ideas. How would you incorporate other villain characters, kind of like G1 did, kind of like a G2 did, in a way that makes sense in our G3 universe? That's what we need to figure out, because that's really the crux of all this conversation. That's why we're having this conversation. If they have to be Matoran, then that lends to character design discussions. If they don't have to be Matoran, then what's a solution for that that doesn't break our 7-Toa rule? And if they're going to be other species, is there a way to make that make sense within the context of the world? We just want to hear ideas. And also, villains for year 2. Are we thinking mechs? Are we thinking superpowered Matoran? In what way are they given powers? Etc., etc., etc. And all that jazz.
Yeah. I think it's also really important to try to keep tabs of what is canon and how the rules currently work within our world as well, because I feel like the more I said this in the topic, but the more radical your idea is, the more like unique and creative and different it is, the less likely it's going to fit.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of have to check expectation a little bit too and make sure, like, hey, this is a really cool idea, but does it make sense in this world?
Which is totally fine. That's the beauty of creativity. If you want to do your own thing, by all means, do your own thing. It's just this specific project, Brickonical. We have our own laws and rules for our canon, and we're trying to develop that right now.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to end there. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you all
No more
next time.
Toa.
Yeah, basically no more Toa. And, as always, every week, we like to give a special shout-out to a Patreon member. This week, I'll give a special thanks to brand new patron Louise, contributing to this discussion, helping us out, figuring out discussion, giving concepts. So thank you very much for your support, and I'm glad you showed up today. So we will see you all next time. Thanks for listening. I'm Mesa.
I'm Bardoran.
I'm LJ.
I'm Jonathan.
I'm Ven.
I'm Takuma Nova.
And I'm Tenebrae Invictus.
And farewell, everybody. Have a good week.
See you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.